There will now be a moment for silent prayer or meditation.
Recording in progress.
Thank you very much. You may take your seats. Honorable delegates, let me take this opportunity and welcome you into the sitting, as well as the special delegates that have joined in today's sitting. We do have delegates from the province of Gauteng, the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, as well as Salga, the Western Cape, as well as Salga representative. We want to acknowledge the presence of MEC for Human Settlement in Gauteng, Honorable Motara, who has joined in. We also want to acknowledge the presence of the Chairperson of Finance in KwaZulu-Natal, Honorable Dlungwana. We also have the MEC for Provincial Treasury in Limpopo, Honorable Mahoi, as well as the Chairperson of Coxta in Limpopo, Honorable Sipuru. In Mpumalanga, we have the Chairperson for Agriculture, Honorable Sedibe, as well as the MEC for Infrastructure in Western Cape, Honorable Seamus. You are warmly welcomed in the NCOP. We are also joined in by the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development in our midst. You are also welcome, Minister. I have been informed, honorable delegates, that there will be no motion, notices of motion or motions without notice. We shall now proceed to the first order, consideration of the report of Select Committee on Public Petitions and Executive Undertakings on the hearing of the Mago petition held on the 12th of September 2025 at Umzumbe village in KwaZulu-Natal province, as was adopted by the Select Committee on the 9th of December 2025. I now have the pleasure to call upon the Chairperson of Select Committee on Public Petitions and Executive Undertaking, Honorable Mukai, to present the committee report. Honorable Mukai, you have 10 minutes.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans, good day. Honorable Chair, the Select Committee on Public Petitions and Executive Undertakings, having considered, it's actually the Mago, I also thought it's the Magogo petition, referred to the committee by the Chairperson, your good selves of the National Council of Provinces, for its consideration and resolution reports as follows. On the 27th of June 2025, the committee received a petition from Mr. Michael Koliswa Sitole, who is now the petitioner, submitted on behalf of the Sitole family and other affected community members. The petitioner is calling for assistance from the National Council of Provinces in relation to the alleged systematically disregard of mining regulatory framework in the Magogo village, Umzumbe, by the South African Lithium Mining Company, hereafter referred to the mining company. The petitioner inter alia alleges the following. The mining company had failed to consult the Magogo community before undertaking the mining activities in the area. The infringement of cultural and other human rights as a result of inappropriate grave relocation practices that had been carried out by the mining company. The mining activities harm the surrounding environment by destroying land and biodiversity, creating toxic chemicals and causing water and air pollution. Since mining started operating on their doorsteps, the walls of their homes are being cracked and the floors are collapsing as houses are being damaged by unabated blasting. Some community members have been diagnosed with certain illnesses likely caused by mining activities. And lastly, the community members submitted their complaints to the Director General of the Department of Mineral Resources, but to no avail. Consequently, Honorable Chair and members, the petitioner requested the committee to physically visit the SA lithium mine and the community of Umzumbe to get a proper sense of grievance and assist the community in resolving the matter. The main objective of our oversight was to determine the extent of allegation caused by mining company or by the mining company. Following the referral of the petition to the committee, then we resolved to have a hearing on the petition to afford the petitioner an opportunity to make first-hand oral submissions to the committee on the petition submitted to the NCOP and also to allow relevant stakeholders to make submissions on the issues raised in the petition. The committee resolved then to have a couple of hearings, both from the petitioner as well as from the community members. Honorable Chair and honorable members, allow me to go straight to the recommendations contained in the report. Following extensive deliberations on the submissions made during the hearing on the petition, the committee recommends to this House as follows. 1. Issues regarding the independent compliance and environmental audit. That the Department of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, in collaboration with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment and the South African Human Rights Commission, commission an independent compliance, environmental and health impact audit within 60 days of the adoption of this report. The audit must assess licensing compliance, environmental degradation, and water quality, and the health impact on residents, and its findings must be made public. Recommendation number 2, we also seeking immediate relief and safety measures. That the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources, working with the Department of Human Settlements and the Ugu District Municipality, conduct urgent structural assessments of damaged houses and facilitate temporary relocation or compensation for households facing safety risks within 60 days of the adoption of this report. Recommendation number 3, accountability for grave violations. That the committee refer the matter of the grave destruction to the South African Heritage Resources Agency and the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities, commonly referred to the CRL Commission, for investigation, prosecution, and remedial action under relevant heritage and cultural rights legislation. Recommendation number 4, the committee is also recommending a restorative justice and compensation. That the South African Lithium Company be directed to establish a compensation and restoration fund to address property damage, medical expenses, and a loss of water supply. This fund must be administered transparently under the Department of Petroleum and Mineral Resources for oversight with independent auditing and community representation. Number 5, we also want public transparency and progress reporting. That the Department of Minerals and Petroleum Resources publishes quarterly progress reports on the implementation of all recommendations on both its website and the Parliamentary Monitoring Group platform, ensuring continuous public accountability. Number 6, we are going to conduct also a follow-up parliamentary oversight visit. That the committee undertake a follow-up oversight visit within 6 months of the adoption of this report to verify progress on resettlement, health interventions, and community compensation. And number 7, we are also looking for legal and policy referral. The other report recommends the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and the National Prosecuting Authority consider possible criminal or civil liability under environmental, heritage, and human rights legislation for any confirmed violations. Number 8, the Madlala Traditional Authority or the Tribal Council and the SA Lithium Company, in consultation with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and community members, must establish a multidisciplinary committee to oversee the following. Number 1, issues of occupational health and safety, environmental impact assessment, social facilitation and community profiling, cash compensation for assets, including crops and structures, resettlement profiling and remuneration, and the provision of a resettlement site and resettlement housing, that a comprehensive business case is required, demonstrating the company's resettlement plan, timeframes, and phases. Number 9, we want also the South African Lithium Company mine address the community concerns within the defined legal framework. Also, the concerns that were raised by the members of the community. And they must engage with the community regarding its internal processes and work together to draft engagement terms of reference. This will assist from the community complaints. And then the last recommendation, number 10, is that the company to ensure compliance with regulatory frameworks and fostering a mutually beneficial relationship with the affected community households. The interventions of the Department of Employment and Labor, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, to act as facilitators and exercise their oversight as regulators in this matter by ensuring legislative compliance with constitutional principles and protecting customary rights. And then, Honorable Chairperson, the other overarching recommendation is that the Department of Mineral Resources and Petroleum Resources and relevant stakeholders and relevant departments must appear before the committee to make sure they give progress report in terms of the work carried out. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, allow me to table this report. But firstly, I would like to thank the committee support staff who are assisting us in carrying our responsibilities. Their continued dedication to this committee is not unrecognized. Let me also thank the committee whip and all the community members for their hard work and dedication. And last but not least, Honorable Chair, let me also thank the presiding officers for their leadership and particularly the House Chairperson, Committees and Oversight for his guidance in the work of our committee. Honorable Chair, I hereby table this report for consideration and adoption. I thank you. Ke a leboga, baie dankie.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kai, for a well-delivered committee report on behalf of the committee. I now put the question, Honorable Delegates. The question is that the report be adopted. Before we proceed to votings, I'm now inviting the provinces to make their declarations. I'll start with the province of Eastern Cape.
Chairperson and honorable members, afternoon. The Eastern Cape has no declaration.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nonkonyane. Honorable Noah.
Thank you, Chairperson. Free State has no declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Modise.
Our beloved Chairperson, Gauteng has no declaration.
Thank you very much. May I invite the province of KwaZulu-Natal?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. My video has got some technical challenges. The province of KwaZulu-Natal has got no declaration.
Thank you, Honorable Kaunda. The province of Limpopo?
Well, thank you, Chairperson. The province of Limpopo, we don't have any.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mulukume. The province of Mpumalanga?
Thank you very much, Chair. The province of Mpumalanga has no declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Keza. The province of Northwest, Honorable Mabilo. No, sorry, Northern Cape.
Mabebo.
Hey, confusion.
No, thanks. As the Northern Cape, we have no declaration to be made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Northwest, Honorable Mabibo.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Northwest have got no declaration.
Thank you, Honorable Badenhorst.
Thank you, Chair. No declaration from the Western Cape.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the provinces to cast their vote. I will start with the province of Western Cape.
The Western Cape will vote in favor, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Province of Northwest.
The Northwest Province vote in favor.
Thank you very much. Northern Cape.
Thank you, Chair. The Northern Cape votes in favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mpumalanga.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Mpumalanga province votes in favor.
Thank you very much. Not KwaZulu Natal.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Province of KwaZulu-Natal vote in favor.
Thank you very much. The province of Limpopo.
Thank you, Chair. The province of Limpopo vote in favor.
Thank you very much. Gauteng.
Siyabonga sihlalo, Gauteng votes in favor.
Thank you very much. Free State.
Thank you, Chair. Free State votes in favor.
Thank you very much. Ikosi Nokonyan.
Thank you, Chair. The Eastern Cape Province of Legends votes in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Accordingly, honorable delegates, the votes have been closed. Okay, there's a hand from Honorable
Awumuhlanga namhlanje.
Ndikhohle isibongo sakho namhlanje. Honorable Nzimande.
Angikaze ngizwe
Is
abantu
there an
awumuhle
objection?
namhlanje ngithi awasho ukuthi awumuhle namhlanje.
No comment, Honorable Nzimande. Okay. The voting has closed, honorable delegates, and accordingly, the petition has been unanimously voted for, and accordingly, it's now being, the report of the select committee has been, the report has been adopted in accordance with the section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. Honorable delegates, we will now proceed to the second order. Consideration of the report of Joint Standing Committee on Defence on the Presidential Letter of Employment of the South African National Defence Force in cooperation with the South African Police Service, dated the 13th of March 2026, which it was, the report was tabled on the 16th of March 2026. I now have a pleasure to invite the acting co-chairperson of the Joint Standing Committee on Defence to present the report. Honorable Noah, you may take the platform.
Thank you, Chairperson, honorable members. The Joint Standing Committee on Defence report on the Presidential Letter of Employment of the South African National Defence Force in cooperation with the South African Police Service, dated 13 March 2026. In terms of Joint Rule 156, subsection 1 of Parliament's Rules, 7th edition, the Joint Standing Committee shall report to both houses on the employment of the South African National Defence Force by the President of the Republic in fulfillment of an international obligation, in defence of the Republic or in cooperation with the South African Police Service. The letter for consideration, Honourable Chair, dated from the President, dated 5th March 2026, was submitted to the Speaker on the National Assembly and tabled in Parliament on 9th March 2026 and referred to the Committee on the 10th March 2026. The letter complies with the requirements of Section 201, subsection 3 of the Constitution, Act 109 of 1996, as well as Section 18, subsection 2, Roman figure E, of the Defence Act number 42 of 2002 by informing Parliament of the following. The employment of the South African National Defence Force in support of the South African Police Service to combat crime and preserve law and order in Gauteng under Operation Prosper Illegal Mining. The employment comprises of 550 members of South African National Defence Force. The duration of the employment is from the 30th of January 2026 to the 30th of April 2026. The expected expenditure of the employment is 80 million and 740. I think they made a mistake here. The writer just read 80 rand 74. Will be corrected, Chairperson. The committee considered the employment letters, Chairperson. Parliament's Joint Standing Committee on Defence considered the relevant letters during its meeting of the 13th March 2026. During engagement of 13 March 2026, the committee made the following comments regarding the employment. The committee noted the employment. The committee raised concern that the employment letter was dated only 5th March 2026, while the deployment commenced on 30th January 2026. The committee raised concern that while the letter of employment was limiting the employment to Gauteng, the presentation included reference to deployment in the Free State as well as Northwest provinces. The committee considered the following recommendations, which is tabled today to the House. In compliance with Joint Rule 156, subsection 1, and after having considered the details of the South African National Defence Force employment according to the presidential letter dated the 5th March 2026, the committee notes the employment and does not recommend the Houses of Parliament consider the amendment, substitution, or termination of the employment. The committee will request the Minister to provide further clarity on the deployment area of this operation, given that the letter of employment was limiting the employment to Gauteng, while the presentation included reference to deployments in the Free State and Northwest provinces respectively. The Minister should also clarify under which authorization the recent anti-gang deployments in Eldorado Park and related areas in Gauteng took place. The committee further calls for the urgent submission of the letter of employment of South African National Defence Force as announced during 2026 State of the Nation address. Thank you, Chairperson. The committee therefore tabled the report for noting.
Thank you very much, Honorable Noe. Honorable delegates, I now put the question. The question is that the report be adopted, of course, with the error that was reflected by the acting chairperson to be corrected. Before we could proceed to the voting, can I invite the provinces to make declaration? Accordingly, I'll start with the province of Eastern Cape.
Chairperson and honorable members, the Eastern Cape has no declaration to make.
Thank you very much. Frestata.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The Free State has no declaration.
Thank you very much. Gauteng.
Salomose, Gauteng has no declaration.
Thank you very much. KwaZulu Natal.
Sihlalo wethu omuhle simthandayo iKwaZulu Natal ayinayo declaration.
Siyabonga. Limpopo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Follow switching KZN Chair. We don't have any declaration to make.
Thank you very much. Mpumalanga.
Sihlalo of the province of the rising sun, Mpumalanga has no declaration. Thank you.
Siyabonga. Northern Cape.
Mudula stulo ore moratang ga rena declaration ya ka Kapa Bokone.
Thank you very much. Northwest.
Ke a leboga modula stilo a rona o montle o re mo ratang. Northwest ga ena declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Western Cape.
The Western Cape would like to declare.
Can you repeat? I beg yours.
The Western Cape would like to declare.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Chairperson, the Western Cape supports the adoption of this report. This report relates to an ongoing deployment of the South African National Defence Force under Operation Prosper.
Honorable Badenhorst, I know you have a rally voice. If we may ask you to speak closer to your mic, would appreciate that. Thank you.
So shall I start again, Chair?
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Chairperson, the Western Cape supports the adoption of this report. This report relates to an ongoing deployment of the South African National Defence Force under Operation Prosper, specifically in support of the South African Police Service to combat illegal mining. The purpose of the letter before the committee was simply to extend an existing operation. Unfortunately, the extension was formalised only in March, yet it was backdated to 30 January 2026, with no clear explanation for the delay in the administrative step. That alone raised legitimate concerns about compliance with the law and with Parliament's oversight responsibilities. More troubling, however, was the confusion created during the committee's engagement. While the letter itself referred to the continuation of the illegal mining operation in Gauteng, the presentation made to the committee spoke of deployments to other provinces. This created the false impression that the letter related to a broader, new deployment, including the one publicly anticipated following the State of the Nation address. It did not. And if we are honest, some of the confusion appeared to stem from the fact that the majority party itself seemed unsure about who chairs this committee, despite the formal governance arrangements with the very party that continues to keep the country's resources out of the clutches of the EFF and the MK party. The uncertainty may be political theatre elsewhere, but in matters of national security and troop deployments, clarity is not optional. Honourable Chairperson, the Western Cape supports this report because communities facing organised crime and illegal mining deserve decisive intervention. But our support is inseparable from our responsibility to ensure proper oversight, particularly where deployments involve substantial public funds. We must be clear, there can be no price tag on people's lives. There must always be accountability for how public money is spent in the name of protecting those lives. Oversight ensures that deployments are effective. It ensures that our troops are properly resourced, properly accommodated, properly transported, and properly ensures that they operate under a clear and lawful mandate and they are not placed in situations where planning failures undermine their mission or their morale. The responsibility is essentially important in the light of the troubling reality that approximately 34% of ongoing corruption and irregular expenditure investigations within the security cluster involve the Department of Defence and military veterans. Investigations that already amount to between 2.1 billion and 2.5 billion rand. No responsible parliament can allow a major deployment to proceed without safeguards to ensure that it does not become part of those statistics. In supporting this report today, the Western Cape reaffirms a simple but essential principle. Strong oversight strengthens deployments. It protects communities, it protects our troops, and it protects the integrity of public funds. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Badenhorst. The declaration is noted. We shall now proceed to the voting, honourable delegates, and I would love to start with the province of Eastern Cape. Nkosi yami.
Gcine sihlalo omuhle. Namalungu abekileyo. Iphondo lengcwele. Liyayamkela rather ingxelo. Inkosi sihlalo.
Nkosi, Nonkosi. Free State.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. The province of the Free State accepts the report, is in support of the report.
Thank you very much, Honourable Khatebe. Honourable Modise.
Hlano, the Home of Champions, as led by Honourable Panyaza Lesufi, supports the report.
Thank you very much. We are now proceeding to the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
Sibonge sihlalo isifundazwe esihle kakhulu kwezokuvakasha siyawunukela lumbiko siyabonga.
Siyabonga, Honourable Kaunda. I'm now inviting the province of Limpopo.
The province of Limpopo is in support of the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The province of Mpumalanga. Honourable Keza.
Thank you, Chair. Pumalanga supports.
Thank you very much. The province of Northern Cape.
Thank you, Chairperson. Northern Cape, we support the report.
Thank you very much. The province of Northwest.
The Northwest Province support the report.
Thank you very much. Western Cape.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to know I occupy some space in Honourable Modisi's head. The Western Cape will support.
Thank you very much. The voting has closed, honourable members, and all provinces have voted in favour of the report in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. Once again, Honourable Noe, thank you very much for a well-delivered report. Honourable delegates, we shall now proceed to the subject for debate as printed on the order paper. The debate on rural infrastructure deterioration. A debate on Municipal Fund withholding in terms of Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution. I now call upon Honourable Makesini from the EFF to open the debate.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Council. Greeting to the members, greeting to the Commander-in-Chief, the leadership of the economic freedom fighters. Chairperson, rural infrastructure is the backbone of economic development in South Africa. Yet, for a period over the 3 decades, the rural landscape of this country, from the forgotten villages of the Eastern Cape to the dusty plains of Limpopo, have laid forgotten, while the metropolitan elite areas enjoy the world classic logistic. For the economic freedom fighters, this is not merely an administrative failure, but it is a deliberate exclusion. That is why we have brought this debate to the House today. And at the center of this debate today is Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution, which empower the National Treasury to withhold or stop the transfer of funds to any organ of state that commit a serious or persistent breach of measures establishment to ensure transparency and expenditure control and sound financial management. The section is an important piece of legislation in that it affects equitable share and the conditional grant. And it also used to enforce financial discipline on municipalities that are facing a financial crisis or those who are not submitting their required financial statement. This applies to the national departments, provincial departments, and the municipalities, and ensure transparency, accountability, and enforcing proper financial management. Chairperson, in reality, this exact section is mentioned here is most often applied through the withholding or stopping of the conditional grants, delay interruptions to the data transfer the funds to the municipality, and the treasury intervention in financial and distress institution. The results is that while accountability is enforced at institutional level, the immediate consequences about the disruption is the service delivery on the ground that are felt by the ordinary masses on the ground. In turn, this means that infrastructure projects are halted and service delivery programs are delayed, and those municipalities that are already under strain are further constrained. Chairperson, the practical implication of invoking Section 216, subsection 2 in rural municipality is profound and must be understood within the broader context of inequality and uneven development in South Africa. By their very nature, the The rural municipality are structurally weaker with limited revenue base, capacity constraint, rely heavily on the national transfer to sustain the basic services. And so it is in this context, the application of Section 216, subsection 2, does not occur in a neutral environment, but within already fragile system. This is because the rural depend heavily on a public funding to deliver the basic services, such as water, sanitation, roads, and education, and health infrastructure. Unlike in the urban areas, the rural community have very limited alternatives, rely almost entirely on the state transfers. This means that Section 216, subsection 2, which govern withhold of the funds, has direct and disappropriate impact on the rural communities. And when such funds are withheld, infrastructure projects stalled, maintenance of water and sanitation system is delayed, and school and clinic are properly not supported at all. In rural context, the impact is immediate and severe reinforce exist inequality and underdevelopment. Chairperson, the application of Section 216, subsection 2 at the local level expose a structural contradiction as municipalities that are already failing, further deprived of resources. Their ability to recover is weakened, and the service delivery obligation remain without sufficient funding. Instead of stabilizing the government, withholding of the funds may deepen institutional failure and accelerate infrastructure collapse. Chairperson, we also say in the rural villages across the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, the effects of this provision are evident. In the Eastern Cape, many rural villages continue to face severe infrastructure challenge, particularly in provision of healthcare and education. The district like OR Tambo and Alfred Zo, access the water remain inconsistent and unreliable. Community often rely on unsafe water resource due to the failing or non-existent system, while clinics and hospitals remain under-resourced. Schools' infrastructure is frequently inadequate with overcrowding of poor sanitation and deterioration of facilities that affect the learning condition. In the province of Limpopo, similar pattern persists across the rural village, where water infrastructure is unreliable and are often collapse entirely. In the district such as Vembe and Sikukuni, the infrastructure exists in plans and budget, but fails in practice. The pipelines are laid without consistent supply, borehole collapse due to the lack of maintenance, and the community go to extended period without water, forced to intervene as the state fail. The example is of Vende in Mushuri village, where the residents in 2025, they spent almost 3 months without water, where the community were forced to contribute and pay to fix the pipes because there were no funds to the municipality that they can fix the municipality. Deputy Chair, in the Northwest, in municipalities such as Ngaka Mulema, electricity infrastructure unreliable and poorly maintained. Power interruptions are prolonged, not only due to the national supply pressure, but because of the local system not have been sustained. In the Free State, the province where I come from the municipality such as Maluti Apofung, Mafube, Ngedwana, Masilonyana, and Machabeng, this reflects a deeper institutional breakdown. Roads have deteriorated to the point where they are no longer connecting communities, but instead isolate them. Emergency services are delayed, transport costs increase, and local economic activities is constrained. a constant pattern emerged, Deputy Chair, where infrastructure is funded and planned for and reported. This sum infrastructure is not delivered. It is not functional on the ground. This reflects a systematic failure rather than an isolated incident. Infrastructure failure is a direct limit to rural economic activity and undermine development programs. Deputy Chair, taken together, these conditions reveal a consistent pattern of widening gap between what is planned and what is experienced by the people on the ground. Infrastructure exists in reports and allocation, yet it failed to translate in reality function on the ground so that people can get service delivered. This is reflected in the state-owned data. The Auditor General has repeatedly found that many municipalities, particularly in rural provinces, are unable to produce credible financial statements or maintain basic financial control, and with adverse finding recurring year after year. Deputy Chair, where funds are withheld, water and borehole projects stalled, road infrastructure remain incomplete, community facilities are left unfinished, local economic opportunities become severely strained, and as a result of the rural community, experience a dual burden, which is the impact of the poor governance and the consequence withheld funding, which lead to further poverty and inequality. While Section 216, subsection 2 is necessary to enforce accountability and protect the public fund, its current application raises a fundamental concern that is, in attempt to discipline municipality, the state may entrench infrastructure deterioration in rural areas of South Africa. Deputy Chair, in rural South Africa today, the crisis of infrastructure is emerging but is not historically entrenched. It is visible in community where water systems fail for weeks, where sanitation is inadequate. The entirely absent where roads have deteriorated beyond their use, and where electricity supply is unstable as exception but a daily condition. For millions of the people, For the millions of the people of South Africa, infrastructure is no longer perform its most basic function, which is to sustain life and dignity. It's deeply embedded structural issue. This brings us to the question how rural municipalities are funded through equitable share model, and whether that the model adequate for the condition of that are faced by the rural municipality is whether is the true reflection or not. Unlike in metropolitan municipalities such as Cape Town, which were benefit from the strong revenue basis concentrated of economic activity, and they are also able to attract the private to invest in their municipality. But in the rural municipality, it's very rare to get people who come and invest in their area. They have limited own revenue in those municipalities, weak economic base, and depend heavily on the national transfer, particularly the equitable share and economic grant. This reflects a deeper spatial inequality, which historically marginalized areas remain locked out of economic opportunity, while still being expected to meet the same governance standards without the same material basis. Yet, despite this, depends of the outcome remain poor. Resources are allocated, but the system remain fragile. Infrastructure extended, but not sustained. This point is not only the governance challenge, but it also misalignment between the funding framework and institutional capacity and the local realities. And it is within the system that Section 216 of the Constitution operates, Deputy Chair. Section 216, subsection 2, empower the National Treasury to withhold the fund where areas of the serious persistent of non-compliance with financial standards. It is intended to enforce accountability to protect the public resources. But Deputy Chair, Its this application in rural municipality raise a serious concern. It is applied in municipalities that are already struggle to deliver, already depend on this transfer, already operate under the condition of institutional weakness. This creates a contradiction, Deputy Chair. Where funds are withheld from the municipality that lack capacity, infrastructure project install, maintenance delay, the service delivery deterioration, communities are left bear consequences of both government's failure and its fiscal intervention. In fact, Deputy Chair, we are using this tool to mean to correct the failure in the way that is reproducing it. This does not suggest that accountability is unnecessary, but accountability cannot be reduced to blunt fiscal instrumental that withdraw resources without restoring capacity, stabilizing governance, and safeguarding service delivery. In closing, Deputy Chair, because a system that enforces compliance in the form while allowing infrastructure collapse, the practice does not resolve the failure, it enriches it. Chairperson, Deputy Chair, the reality is that it's unclear. Rural infrastructure deteriorating, water system fail, water sanitation remain inadequate, road and collapsing electricity supply is unstable. What is not enforced but consideration of how accountability funding, capacity alignment in the municipality. Without alignment, the cycle of infrastructure will continue despite the mechanism designated to prevent it. Salute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makasini, for opening this debate. And now we move on to the participant that will come afterwards. That is the Honorable P. Swat, who has 7 minutes.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, fellow South Africans, goeiemiddag, good afternoon, Molweni. When we speak about the withholding of municipal funds, we must first understand and address and understand the deterioration of rural infrastructure in South Africa. Then we must ask and begin with one uncomfortable truth. Infrastructure does not collapse by accident. It collapses when provincial or local governance collapses. Infrastructure does not collapse by accident. It collapses when provincial and local governance collapses. Across rural South Africa, we see the same picture repeated year after year. Municipalities unable to meet their most basic obligations. Roads remain unrepaired for years. Communities protest for access to water, as seen in Gauteng. Water systems fail regularly, and they cannot pay water boards. Electricity networks are on the verge of collapse, as seen across Nelson Mandela Bay, which has been without power for weeks, and sewage flow through communities already struggling with poverty. The greatest tragedy, Honorable Chairperson, and all members, is the rural communities bear the brunt of failed governance. Those who rely on us the most, we have failed the worst. Those who rely on us the most, we have failed the most. Honorable Chairperson, it is time that we hold municipalities accountable for poor service delivery that has become the lived reality of so many South Africans. The Auditor General has made it clear that municipalities are losing billions in revenue because they are failing to bill and collect that is owed to them. At the same time, water and electricity losses due to neglected infrastructure amounts to more than 37 billion in lost revenue. 37 billion in lost revenue. And let me refer to the Free State. the home of my DA colleague, Honorable Skirkogel, a province where governance failure is clearly visible, that is arguably the worst run province in South Africa. The Auditor General has outlined how many municipalities in that province are effectively bankrupt. In the 23-24 financial year alone, collective net loss of 745 million was recorded. Irregular expenditure reached 12.5 billion rand, and fruitless and wasteful expenditure increased to 5.3 billion. This is around about 18 billion rand in irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. Do we know how much? Can we imagine in rand value, in physical money, how much money that is? The issue is not the shortage of money. It is poor governance, financial mismanagement, and the lack of accountability. We thus have to ask the question, is the current local government fiscal framework still viable? If we are told that Treasury's withholding of funds is responsible for infrastructure collapse, let us be honest with our residents. Funds are withheld under Section 2016 of the Constitution. When municipalities fail to comply with financial management rules, and the Free State being the prime example, Treasury does not punish communities. It responds to failed governance. I repeat, Treasury will not punish communities. They only respond to failed governance. We cannot continue pouring money into municipalities where procurement rules are ignored, tenders are manipulated, and infrastructure bodies are treated like personal bank accounts, while services go undelivered and rural communities suffer the most. Chairperson, municipal debt to Eskom is projected to reach 116.2 billion by the end of March. Municipalities collect money from residents but fail to pay Eskom. The question must be asked, where does that money go? This is not a technical failure. It is a governance failure. Across the country, critical technical posts are no longer filled with engineers and professionals, but too often through political deployment. Water systems cannot be run by cadres. They must be run by engineers. Technical expertise and electricity networks required qualified professionals. Honourable members, the consequences, as we know and as we see, are devastating. The Green Drop report shows that more than a half of South Africa water treatment plants are in poor and critical condition, meaning untreated sewage is flowing into rivers where that communities depend on. This is not just infrastructure collapse, it is a public health crisis. Chairperson, where governance improves, infrastructure improves. Municipalities in the Western Cape consistently achieve better audit outcomes, not because they receive more money, but because they manage it better. South Africa does not have a shortage of infrastructure funding. South Africa has a shortage of honest governance, and that is the reality so many of us have known even 32 years into democracy. And until we fix poor governance, rural infrastructure will continue to collapse, and the poorest communities will continue to suffer. I thank you. Spot on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. We now move on to the next contributor to the debate, and on the virtual platform, we have the Gauteng MEC for Human Settlements, the Honorable Motara. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much to the chairperson and honorable members, special delegates of the NCOP, permanent delegates of the NCOP. We gather today to deliberate on a matter that sits at the heart of governance, accountability, and the lived realities of our people. the deterioration of infrastructure, particularly in rural and municipal spaces, and the implications of withholding funds in terms of Section 216, subsection 2 of our Constitution. Section 216 is clear. It empowers the National Treasury to enforce compliance and, when necessary, to stop the transfers of funds where there is serious or persistent breach. This is a necessary instrument. It protects public resources, reinforces accountability, and it ensures that the state remains disciplined in its financial conduct. But Chairperson, the Constitution also asks something deeper of us. It asks us to govern in a way that improves people's lives. And that is where the tension lies. Because when transfers are withheld, the impact is not confined to balance sheets or audit outcomes. It moves quickly into the lives of ordinary people, and we must confront the real-world consequences of this intervention. Municipalities rely heavily on the equitable share to sustain daily operations. When this is interrupted, they are unable to pay workers, service providers, and contractors. What follows is predictable. Refuse collection slows down, water provision becomes inconsistent, electricity supply is strained. Infrastructure projects are among the first to stall. Roads remain unfinished, bulk infrastructure is delayed, housing developments lose momentum. In rural areas and smaller municipalities, the effects are even sharper. These are places where a single delayed project can hold back an entire community. There is also a longer-term consequence that is often overlooked. Municipalities under financial pressure begin to rely on short-term loans just to stay afloat. Debt accumulates, costs rise, the space for recovery becomes smaller and smaller. And in the midst of all of this, public trust begins to erode. Chairperson, there is another truth we must confront honestly. We have seen instances across the country where infrastructure programs have stalled, not because funding was never allocated, but because institutional challenges prevented effective spending. Some municipalities have struggled to spend what has already been allocated to them. Reports from the Auditor General continue to point to recurring challenges: weak financial controls, under expenditure on infrastructure grants, and projects that are delayed not by lack of funding, but by lack of planning and execution capacity. The National Treasury has echoed this, highlighting persistent underspending on grants intended for critical services like roads, sanitation, and water infrastructure. This is not a question of intent. It is a question of capacity, and capacity cannot be corrected through financial penalties alone. Where there are shortages of engineers, planners, and project managers, projects will stall. Where procurement systems are weak, funds will remain unused. Where governance is unstable, implementation will suffer. Withholding funds in that context can deepen the problem rather than resolve it. Some municipalities have even gone as far as challenging these decisions, arguing that the effect is to penalize communities rather than those responsible for administrative failures. That concern should not be dismissed lightly. Because when services are disrupted, it is not officials who feel it first. It is residents, the families who rely on consistent access to water, electricity, sanitation, and housing. It is in those moments that we must remind ourselves of the vision that was guided this country for decades. The Freedom Charter declares, and I quote, "There shall be houses, security, and comfort," close quote. This is not just a slogan, but a commitment, one that speaks directly to the responsibility of the state to ensure that people live with dignity, supported by functioning infrastructure and reliable services. If our interventions unintentionally delay that promise, then we must reflect carefully on how those interventions are applied. Chairperson, none of this suggests that accountability should be weakened. On the contrary, accountability is essential, but accountability must be paired with support. Municipalities need practical, sustained assistance, technical expertise, stronger financial systems, and governance stability. They need help to plan, to implement, and to spend effectively. A municipality that is corrected without being supported is unlikely to improve. A municipality that is supported while being held accountable has a far better chance of recovering and delivering. In Gauteng, we have seen that when oversight is combined with hands-on support, projects move, blockages are resolved, and delivery begins to stabilize. That is the approach that should guide us. Honorable members, infrastructure is not abstract. It shapes how people live every day. A working water system means health. Reliable electricity means safety. And a completed housing project means dignity. When those things are delayed, the consequences are immediate and deeply personal. So the question before us is not whether the Treasury should act. It must. The question is how those actions can strengthen municipalities rather than weaken their ability to deliver. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of every intervention, every policy, every decision we take must be measured against one thing. Are people better off? Are we moving closer to a country where every person can live with dignity, supported by infrastructure that works in communities that are not left behind? That is the standard, and that is the responsibility we carry. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable MEC. We now move on to the next contributor, also on the virtual platform, the Honorable Molokome. You have 13 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, for the opportunity, and greetings to your good self and everyone on the platform. Honorable Deputy Chair, we stand at a crossroad. The ANC has currently declared 2026 as a year of decisive action to fix local government. This is not merely a political slogan. It is a battle cry for the millions of South Africans in the rural areas and the heartlands. Those daily lives are constrained by crippling bridges, the dry taps, and also the roads that we are seeing in rural villages. Our mission this year is to move from the hierarchy of the planning to the reality of execution. We are soberly aware that the credibility of our democratic project will be judged by whether a farmer in a remote village can get their produce to market, or whether a child can cross a river safely to reach school. The National Development Plan target for infrastructure investment is 30% of GDP, yet we have averaged only 15.7% over the last decade. This gap is most painfully felt in the rural areas of our municipalities. Honorable members, much has been said about Section 2162 of our Constitution. Let us be clear. The true spirit of this clause is not to punish our people by withholding their equitable shares, but its intention is to protect the public purse from serious or persistent material breaches of financial management. Currently, the National Treasury holds a heavy responsibility. When we see that 87% of municipal debts is older than 90 days, we must ask ourselves this question: whether withholding funds is an impediment or an opportunity. We must critique this current Treasury regulations. The impediment lies in a one-size-fits-all approach. Rural municipalities can often lack the tax base of metros. When we withhold these funds due to poor billing systems that may have collapsed years ago, we risk a death spiral. Section 2162 must be catalyzed for intervention, not just an act of financial garnishing. Deputy Chair, to fix local government, we must empower our district municipalities. They are the strategic hub of our rural economy under the district development model. The district is the scale at which we achieve synergy between national, province, and local municipalities. Data from data from 2025 NDP monitoring report shows that where districts take a lead in a shared services, polling of engineers, auditors, project managers, infrastructure project are 22% more likely to be completed on time. We must move away from the fragmentation where every small local municipality tries to reinvent the wheel. The district must be the primary vehicle for rural infrastructure engineering. Honorable members, we must interrogate the rule intent of this section. it was never framed by the founders of our constitution as a switch for local administration. Rather, it is a preventative medicine meant to stop the continuance of financial rot. If we don't implement this, I know our honorable members will be saying there's a lot of corruption that is happening in municipalities. And I believe that we will all understand that when we implement this session, there will be some several investigations and that has been made before it can be imposed in those various municipalities. The impediment we face today is that Section 2162 is often triggered as a last resort, like I've said, after the horse has already bolted. By the time the treasury stops the flow of funds, the municipality is already in a stage of advance of collapse. We must move towards a triggered linked investigation model. If a rural municipality fails to submit an audit-ready financial statement for 2 consecutive cycles, Section 2162 must not just stop the money. It should automatically trigger a mandatory national treasury diagnostic. However, without a concurrent technical investigation, the punishment simply resulted in a 14% drop in local sanitation maintenance. AGSA General Report of 2025, this was indicated in that report. We can allow fiscal discipline to result in a literal overflow of storage in our street. Fellow South Africans and honorable members, we must be honest about the inadvertent impediments created by current national treasury regulations. While the Municipal Finance Management Act, which is the MFMA, is a gold standard for transparency for a small rural municipality in Eastern Cape or in Limpopo, the compliance burden is often insurmountable. We are seeing a compliance paradox. A municipality spends so much of its limited budget and on consultants to comply with Treasury's report templates that they have no budget left to actually fix the boreholes. And I think, honorable members, this has been raised by the Auditor General in several occasions when they are doing their financials. Treasury must differentiate between compliance and performance. Perhaps we need to tight regulations framework that allows rural municipality more flexible in procurement and especially infrastructure, provided they are under the direct mentorship of the district municipalities or the provincial treasury. Honorable members, the role of the national government in advancing local needs must shift from oversight or co-production. Currently, the Municipal Infrastructure Grant, which is the MIG, is often underspent and returned to Treasury because of municipality lack municipalities lack and the project management unit to spend it. And sometimes this grant is used to pay even the officials in municipalities. And this is a challenge that we know that municipalities are faced with. This is a tragedy of a higher order. As part of our decisive intervention, national government is deploying infrastructure strike teams through the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agency, which is tenders, and also the project or the project oversight for the top 50 most distressed rural councils. And I think this will also assist those municipalities that are struggling to deal with their finances in various municipalities. Honorable members, the role of the national government in advancing the needs of the shift from just oversighting and code, I think this one I have passed. In conclusion, Chair, I think I'm left with some few minutes. In conclusion, Chair, Deputy Chair, 2026 is a year where we stop managing the decline and start managing the recovery. We are using Section 162. We are using Section 2162 not as a weapon of exclusion, but as a compass for redirection. We are telling our municipalities that the money is there, but the old way of spending it is over. We are placing the district at the center of the rural economy to ensure that the entire governmental fiscal relations, which is the IGFR system, works for the person at the end of the dead road, not just the accountant in a Pretoria office. We need to take this serious as local government, especially because it's direct to working direct with our communities. Let us be the generation of leaders that turns the constitution threat of withholding the funds into the constitutional promises of the functional, capable, and the rural centric developmental state. Chairperson, I think this session is working in our, especially in the rural municipalities, so that funds are well managed. It's not to go and punish our rural municipalities, because we need to know that the municipalities need to account, even the district and the provincial government, they need to account on how they are using the money, so that they don't pay officials or employers using the funds that are given to meant for the service delivery. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Molokome, for your inputs. And now, Honorable Delegates, I am pleased to announce the presence of the Honorable Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, always welcome in the NCOP. You may now take the podium for 15 minutes, Honorable Minister.
House Chairperson, honorable members, greetings to you all. The Department of Land Reform and Rural Development is mandated to develop national rural development policy, legislate within its functional domain, and implement service delivery programs that support rural communities. The mandate is executed through facilitating economic growth in rural areas, supporting land reform beneficiaries, advancing integrated land administration systems, and driving spatial transformation to enable sustainable rural livelihoods. In this regard, the Integrated Rural Development Sector Strategy identifies rural infrastructure development, maintenance, and investment as a central enabler of economic development, industrialization, and job creation across 44 rural districts. The structural nature of the infrastructure crisis. Over the past 3 decades, there has been a sustainable deterioration of infrastructure across rural municipalities, including roads and transport networks, water and sanitation systems, electricity supply, and social infrastructure platforms. This deterioration is not attributed to a single factor,
It reflects systemic failure across multiple dimensions, namely chronic underinvestment in both capital and maintenance, weak institutional governance and instability, limited consequence management, procurement inefficiencies and delays, weak project preparation and execution capacity, persistent under-expenditure of conditional grants, abandoned and delayed infrastructure projects, and increasing exposure to corruption and maladministration, particularly in water service delivery systems. The consequence is a direct erosion of constitutional rights, including dignity and equitable access to basic services, as enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. On municipal system failure, the scale of institutional distress is now well established. The 2025 COGTA report indicates the following: 67 municipalities are in financial distress, 33 municipalities are under Section 139 interventions, and 100 municipalities are operating with unfunded budgets. These conditions materially constrain service delivery and infrastructure investment capacity. In parallel, Statistics South Africa 2024 General Household Survey reports that only 36.7% of rural residents have access to safe water, reflecting persistent rural-urban inequality in basic service provision. These outcomes are structural consequences of governance and institutional design failures. There is alignment with the role of National Treasury in enforcing fiscal discipline through Section 2162 of the Constitution. This mechanism remains necessary to enforce compliance with the Municipal Finance Management Act, ensure adoption of funded budgets, and strengthen accountability in municipal financial management. However, the current application of fund withholding introduces a critical policy contradiction. While it enforces compliance, it simultaneously risks by disrupting service delivery, deepening infrastructure collapse, and undermining constitutional rights in already vulnerable communities. In practice, this often means enforcement without a parallel service delivery continuity mechanism. The policy gap, absence of service delivery continuity mechanism. The current system lacks a structured intervention model to ensure continuity of service delivery when municipalities fail. Accordingly, a clear institutional gap exists. A coordinated provincial or national service delivery mechanism must be established to assume implementation responsibility where municipal capacity is compromised, deliver critical infrastructure projects, and stabilize service provision while municipalities undergo corrective processes. Without such mechanism, fiscal enforcement alone is insufficient. Strategic framing of the core policy question. The issue before this House is not diagnostic. The root causes are known. The central questions are operational and political. Why is decisive intervention not consistently implemented? Why does the cycle of allocation, underperformance, and withdrawal persist? What mechanisms will ensure municipalities are capacitated to deliver? What institutional model will break the current cycle of failures? These questions require implementation decisions, not further analysis. Infrastructure prioritization imperative. A deliberate shift in infrastructure policy is necessary. Existing infrastructure assets must be prioritized alongside new investment. In particular, rural access roads require urgent intervention to enable access to schools, clinics, and markets, to support agricultural value chains, improve emergency response capability, and strengthen spatial integration between rural and urban economies.
neglecting maintenance, accelerating long-term fiscal and social costs. Targeted policy and implementation interventions. The following measures are proposed to stabilize and reverse current trends. Financial and governance reform. Ring-fence infrastructure maintenance and development budgets. Strengthen grant planning, execution and monitoring. Improve revenue management and financial discipline. 2, legislative and policy alignment. Amend transport legislation to formally recognize rural roads as economic infrastructure. Classify access roads as critical socio-economic assets. 3, labor and economic activation. Expand labor-intensive maintenance programs to drive employment. Scale up local economic participation through structured programs. 4, institutional capacity and delivery models. Establish district-level shared technical capacity. Deploy professional implementing agents, including DBSA, MISA, and provincial entities where municipal capacity is weak. 5, law enforcement and project protection. Address criminal disruption of infrastructure projects, including extortion practices linked to construction mafia and local business forums. 6, intergovernmental intervention. Strengthen coordinated provincial and national intervention mechanisms to ensure uninterrupted service delivery. In closing, Honorable Chair, the current trajectory is unsustainable. If decisive action is not taken, infrastructure degradation will deepen, service delivery will continue to fail, and the social contract with rural communities will erode further. Future generations will assess the decisions taken in this period harshly. The responsibility to act is immediate and not transferable. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your inputs in this debate. We now move on to the next person to participate, and that is the Honorable MC Sidebe, who is also on the virtual platform and has 9 minutes.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Greetings to you and Chairperson of the NCOP in absentia and all honorable members. Well, it's my first time to address a sitting of the GNU. I'm used to engaging with the incompetent one in my province. Allow me to also greet my Commander-in-Chief and President of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius
Honorable
Siloma Lema.
members, Honorable Member, can I ask you to switch off your video because it's causing an echo in the chamber?
Okay, thank you. I've switched
Thank you.
on the video. Chairperson, allow us once more to send our heartfelt condolences to the Malema family who laid to rest their mother, sister, aunt, friend, and grandmother. We also want to thank all those who sent the messages of condolences and those who came to lay fighter Martha Malema to rest, who died a member of the EFF in good standing. Honorable members, the people of Dixie Village and Tulamahashi in Pushpakrish local municipality must wake up at 3 a.m. to queue for water from tankers. You will find the same. You will find the same if you go to Emalahleni, where every day residents and businesses are subjected to water supply interruptions. We have without fail pleaded with both the provincial and national government to fix roads in Skumansdal and Mangweni in Komazi. It is raining now and children cannot go to school because there are no proper roads. Honorable Chairperson,
Yes, we're listening.
if you go to Siabusa in Dr. Chase Moroka local municipality at any given time, there will be raw sewage running for weeks unattended because the municipality has no capacity. I raise these few examples just to demonstrate state of affairs in many municipalities across the province. The province and many more of these municipalities have failed to put measures in place to spend the legal revenue they collect or the funds that come through in the form of equitable share and conditional grants. We have projects that were started and left incomplete, leaving our people stranded with unfinished water projects, roads built halfway with one side not surfaced, sanitation infrastructure left to decay, and cause of stench and children in classroom that can collapse at any time. To make matters worse, as correctly said by speakers before, many of these municipalities and departments do not have effective mechanism to prevent wasteful, irregular, and fruitless expenditure. On top of this, the very same provincial government and municipalities do not have the capacity to build contractors, to hold, so to say, contractors accountable. To withhold funds in terms of Section 216 2 of the Constitution is not a solution to a general problem. This provision was put in place to deal with occasional cases where there is consistent and persistent breach of site rules. But the reality is that, Honorable Chair, the National Treasury may have substantial reasons to withhold funds and will not make matters better but worse. We have to think both structurally and practically about the challenges facing provinces and municipalities. Honorable Chair, we must all agree that the current model of outsourcing everything to find party contractors has failed, and it is time we begin to fast track insourcing in a more consistent, coordinated, and comprehensive manner. Provinces and municipalities, sorry, my gadget is just a second. I tried to move to a network area because I didn't want to struggle with the network. Pardon me, Chair. Provinces and municipalities must build internal capacity of engineers, artisans, town planners, and administrators to build and maintain roads, fix water and sanitation infrastructure, manage disasters, and maintain electrical infrastructure. Those that have insourced early, such as SARS, the South African Police Services, and Institution of Higher Learning, are already benefiting from the insourcing. Honorable Chair, at a more practical level, we need to appreciate the roads, not all municipalities are facing the same problem. And therefore, whatever solution we bring cannot be uniform. We must avoid at all costs one size fits all approach. As I conclude, Honorable Chair,
Yes, you still have 3 minutes. You can conclude.
Okay, conclude.
yes, as I conclude, Honorable Chair, we have to think both structurally. I've indicated that because my speech has went lost.
Right.
I'm concluding, Chair, don't worry. Honorable Chairperson and delegate, it is only through structural internal capacity building that we can resolve service delivery challenges and improve governance. This is how we restore the dignity and not deepen poverty and equality. I was saying earlier, Honorable Chair, that those that have insourced early, such as SARS, the South African Police Services, and Institution of Higher Learning, are already benefiting from the insourcing. And as a matter of emphasis, Honorable Chair, at a more practical level, we need to appreciate that not all municipalities are facing the same problem. And therefore, whatever solution we bring cannot be uniform. We must avoid one size fits all. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Sidibe, for your input. The next speaker who's going to be on the visual platform is Honorable O.P. Gunene from KwaZulu-Natal, IFP. Honorable Gunene.
Thanks, Honorable Chairperson, the Honorable Deputy Chairperson, Honorable Minister, special guests, Honorable members, and the residents of our beloved country, South Africa. Across rural South Africa, infrastructure is under significant strain. In many communities, roads have become difficult to navigate. Water systems are frustratingly inconsistent, and access to basic services remains uneven. Yet these challenges did not arise overnight. They are in large part the result of the long-standing structural and governance issues that have developed over time. While this context is important, it cannot be an excuse for inaction. It must instead serve as a foundation for corrective measures. In this regard, it is important to recognize that the current government of national unity is taking steps to stabilize and improve governance across the state. The commitments to rebuilding institutional capacity and strengthening accountability mechanisms is a necessary and a welcome development. We therefore, as the IFP, strongly commend the Honorable Minister for COGTA for driving the white paper on local government. This intervention represents a decisive and necessary reform agenda, one that directly confronts systematic weaknesses in municipal governance. If implemented with urgency and discipline, it will go a long way in restoring financial credibility, strengthening institutional performance, and critically reducing the need for drastic measures such as withholding of municipal funds under Section 2162. The matter before us today concerns Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution of our country. This provision empowers the National Treasury to withhold funds where there is persistent and serious non-compliance with prescribed financial management standards. Section 216, subsection 2 is not intended as a punitive measure, but rather as a safeguard, a constitutional mechanism designed to prevent further financial harm where there are clear and ongoing failures in governance. Ideally, however, such interventions should be rare and carefully executed. If a culture of prudent, disciplined, and lawful financial management were consistently upheld across municipalities, the need to invoke this provision would be significantly reduced. The MA already provides a robust and comprehensive framework for management of public finances. It sets out clear obligations for transparency, accountability, and proper expenditure. The challenge we face is not a lack of legislative instruments, but rather uneven implementation and enforcement over time. It is rural communities that continue to feel the painful effects of these shortcomings. Historically, rural municipalities have operated with constrained revenue bases and limited infrastructure investment. At the same time, these communities have contributed significantly to the broader economy, often without receiving commensurate levels of development in return. There is therefore both a developmental imperative and a moral obligation to ensure sustained and protected investment in rural infrastructure. When resources intended for this purpose are mismanaged, the consequences are immediate and tangible. It means projects are delayed, services are interrupted, and communities are left without the basic infrastructure required for dignity and economic participation. It is in this context the use of Section 216.2 requires careful consideration. While withholding funds may be necessary to prevent further financial mismanagement. It can also place an additional pressure on municipalities already struggling to meet their service delivery obligations. This is a task that requires sustained commitment, capable leadership, and a shared resolve to ensure that the progress now being pursued is both measurable and lasting. Because ultimately, every improvement in financial governance is an investment in the dignity and future of our rural communities. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Unene, for your wonderful input. The next speaker is also on the visual platform. Is Honorable K.E. Mawai, the MEC Provincial Treasurer in Limpopo. Over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Delegates. Good afternoon. The state of rural infrastructure in our country calls for urgent attention and firm leadership. Our communities depend on roads, water, and sanitation services, as well as public facilities that must function every day. When these fail, the consequences are immediate and deeply felt. This debate places the invoking of Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution at the center of this challenge. It is therefore important that we are precise in how we understand its application and relevance thereof. I may not repeat what all the previous speakers have emphasized about the actual essence of the sections, but honorable delegates, public money cannot be transferred without accountability. Where there is continued failure to meet basic financial obligations, where unwanted expenditure persists, and where grant conditions are ignored, National Treasury has a responsibility to intervene in accordance with Section 216, subsection 2. It must also be understood that this intervention is limited in scope. Funds cannot be withheld indefinitely. The Constitution sets a clear maximum period of 120 days, and once compliance is achieved, these funds are then released. The invoking of this section is often misunderstood as a punitive measure, yet its real purpose is to restore financial discipline and responsible governance by the local sphere of government. In our province, Limpopo, we have experienced persistent non-compliance with Section 65, subsection 2, Article E of the MFMA, which in the main requires that all monies owed by municipalities be paid within 30 days of receipt of invoice. This non-compliance has resulted in high debts owed on bulk purchases such as water from water boards and electricity from ESCOM. Furthermore, there has been persistent non-compliance with Section 32, subsection 2 of the MFMA, which requires municipalities to recover irregular or fruitless and wasteful expenditure from liable individuals. This is unless due process has been duly followed by councils in line with the applicable legislation and the expenditure has been formally certified as irrevocable and written off. It is in these instances that it attracts the invocation of this section. AGSA has always, under certain circumstances, observed that appropriate investigations are not being conducted by council committees to establish the facts. And this has resulted in slow reduction of unwanted expenditure. It is further observed that writing off of this expenditure should in no way be excuses in either criminal or disciplinary proceedings against persons charged with commission of offenses such as breaching of legislation, especially of Section 32, subsection 5 of the MFMA. Through the implementation of Section 216 in previous times, we have begun to see a change in behavior. Municipalities are now more aware that continued non-compliance carries consequences, including the withholding or stoppage of funds. As a result, there is a noticeable improvement in reporting and greater willingness to engage honestly. Honorable Chair and delegates, if we are to deal with rural infrastructure deterioration, we must examine the broader realities within rural municipalities which impede progress. A consistent pattern has emerged over time, and in some cases, funds are allocated but are not fully spent. At the end of the financial year, unspent conditional grants are then returned to the National Revenue Fund unless strict conditions for rollover are met. This means that projects remain incomplete, not because resources were denied or grants were stopped, but because they were not utilized appropriately. In addition, many municipalities face serious challenges in collecting their own revenue where it is due. This limits their ability to maintain infrastructure and to continue projects where grant fund is disrupted. A municipality that cannot generate and manage its own revenue base will always struggle to sustain service delivery. There is also the question of maintenance. Infrastructure does not collapse overnight. It deteriorates over time when it is not properly maintained. Yet we continue to see inadequate budgeting for repairs and maintenance of infrastructure and the absence of integrated asset management plans. This weakens the entire system and increases long-term costs. Equally concerning are weaknesses in implementation, delays in procurement, poor contract management, and insufficient oversight that leads to slow or incomplete delivery. These challenges contribute directly to underspending and efficiency. Honorable delegates, when we consider all these factors together, the conclusion is clear. The deterioration of our rural infrastructure is not necessarily caused by the enforcement of Section 216. It is driven by deeper structural and governance challenges within municipalities. Therefore, invoking of Section 216 is triggered by those challenges. It does not create them. To suggest otherwise risks diverting attention from the work that must be done. In fact, this provision has encouraged collaboration where there was once persistent deadlock. For example, in our case here in Limpopo, long-standing dispute between the Water Board and some municipalities which are water service authorities were amicably resolved, and the invocation was withdrawn immediately through engagements. So through structured engagement and payment arrangements, parties that were once in conflict are now finding common ground and commitments are being honored. This demonstrates that the application of Section 216 is not necessarily about punishment. It is about correcting behavior, strengthening accountability, and ensuring that public resources are managed in a manner that serves communities effectively. There is a clear evidence of gradual progress. A culture of discipline is taking root, and over time, this will translate into improved service delivery and financial stability, which will unlock rural infrastructure development. Honorable Chairperson, the task before us is to strengthen local governance. This includes improving financial discipline, enhancing a revenue collection, and building technical capacity for planning and implementation. It also requires consequence management. Where there is non-compliance, there must be accountability. As the Limpopo Provincial Treasury, we continue to support municipalities through technical oversight and support and capacity building initiatives. However, support must be matched by responsibility. Municipal leadership must take ownership of financial management. Councils must exercise effective oversight, and officials must adhere to the standards set by relevant authorities. In this way, there will be no need to even fear the invocation of Section 216 because we'll do more prevention than curing. I thank you very much.
Thank you, MEC Mawai, for the explanation and the input you've just made. The next speaker is also going to be on the visual platform is Honorable M.E. Dlungwana, the Chairperson of Finance Committee, KwaZulu-Natal. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the NCOP, and delegates from the provinces. While we are celebrating 30 years of our democratic constitution, a constitution born from struggle, sacrifice, and unwavering conviction that the people shall govern, we are called today to reflect with honesty on whether we are living up to its promise. It is this very constitution, our democratic constitution, that gives us both power to allocate resources and responsibility to ensure that those resources changes lives. It is therefore within this constitutional mandate that we must locate this debate, not as an abstract context of political ideas, but as a living question about whether the state at all levels is fulfilling its obligation to advance dignity, restore equality, and improve the material conditions of the people, especially the rural communities that were historically marginalized. Honorable Chairperson, 30 years ago, the rural South Africa, including the majority parts of poor rural KwaZulu-Natal, where I come from, were deliberately underdeveloped. Millions of people had no access to clean water, electricity, no proper roads, and no sanitation. Unfortunately, very few people were provided with all these services because of their race and their origin. But today, because of the work of the African National Congress-led democratic government, the lived realities of rural communities has fundamentally changed. The access to electricity has expanded from less than 40% of households in 1994 to over 90% today. Reached deep rural villages that were once in total darkness. Access to basic water services has increased from around 60% in mid-1990s to over 85% of households, while millions more now benefit from sanitation infrastructure that simply did not exist before our democratic breakthrough. These are not abstract achievements, Honorable Chairperson, but material changes in the lives of people and a reflection of a developmental state at work. And yet, honorable members, to acknowledge progress is not to deny the challenges. It is precisely because we take our responsibility seriously that we must confront the weaknesses that undermine these gains. The AG pointed to the fact that only 34 municipalities, which equal to 13%, achieved clean audit in the 22-23 financial year, improving only slightly to 41 municipalities, which is 16% in 23-24. At the same time, about 86% of municipalities continued to have material compliance findings, pointing to systemic governance weaknesses. And yes, this is beyond just technical issue. It is also a service delivery issue. When funds meant for water infrastructure are mismanaged, taps run dry. When maintenance budgets are not properly utilized, roads collapse. When financial controls are weak, communities suffer. We have also seen this clearly in the growing debt crisis, as municipal debt to water board, as honorable members have mentioned before, has reached over 24 billion, threatening the sustainability of the entire water value chain. In KwaZulu-Natal, the total debt owed to municipalities rose to over 67 billion, with 56 billion older than 90 days, indicating deep structural financial distress. At the same time, Honorable Chairperson, municipalities themselves owe billions to ESCOM, as members have mentioned earlier also, and other creditors, creating a cycle of financial instability that directly impacts service delivery. That is why the ANC has unequivocal that 2026 is the year of decisive action to fix local government, moving from commitments to measurable impact to all these systemic challenges. But let us be clear, Honorable Chairperson, the challenges of local government are not uniform, and they are not the responsibility of one political formation alone. For instance, in the northern KwaZulu-Natal, it is mostly led by the IFP. It is some of the most severe infrastructure backlog and governance failures. Communities in those areas experience persistent water shortages, deteriorating roads, and weak financial controls due to serious financial mismanagement and governance inconsistencies. This is not said to shift the blame, but it is said to underline the principle that where there is instability, there is lack of consequence, where there is lack of consequence management, where there is poor planning, infrastructure indeed deteriorates, irrespective of who is leading, regardless of how much fund is allocated. And this brings us to the core of today's debate on municipal funding and the use of Section 2162 of the Constitution. Honorable Chairperson, the equitable share is not a privilege. It is a constitutional instrument to ensure that even the poorest communities receive basic services. It is meant to close the gap between inequality and dignity. But the Constitution is equally clear. Where there is persistent, serious financial misconduct, the state has the duty to intervene. Therefore, Section 2162 is not a punishment, but a safeguard. We have seen its impact when the National Treasury withheld funds from 34 defaulting municipalities, resulting in at least 278 million being repaid to Water Board within weeks. This demonstrates both sides of the reality. It can enforce accountability, but it must be applied with care. The ANC position, therefore, is balanced and principled. We support accountability, we support consequence management, we support proper use of Section 2162. But we also insist that it must be applied in a manner that protects communities and not to punish them. Honorable Chairperson, the main strategy before us is not whether resources exist, but is whether those resources that have been allocated are translated into sustainable development. The Municipal Finance Management Act is clear. Accounting officers, mayors, and officials have a duty to prevent unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. Yet, year after year, billions are lost through poor procurement, weak controls, and lack of consequence management. This is where the battle must be fought, not in slogans, rhetoric, or cheap politics, but in systems, discipline, and in accountability. That is why the African National Congress, in particular in KwaZulu-Natal, was strengthening oversight, building capacity, and enforcing consequence management across all spheres of government. The truth is, South Africa is better today than it was in 1994. More people have got access to basic services than ever before. But of course, we must deal with these underlying issues that we've mentioned above. As I conclude, I wish to remind honorable members that our Constitution is not a document of convenience, but a social contract with the people. And Section 2162 exists to protect that contract. The MFMA exists to enforce that contract, and the ANC exists to advance that contract. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nene. On that note of respecting the
Constitution,
the next speaker is inside the House. Is Honorable Majola from the MKP KZN. Yegelani Majola lapha.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, good afternoon. Chairperson, as we debate this topic, let us be honest from the onset. What we are witnessing in rural South Africa is not simple infrastructure decay. It is a direct consequence of the failed enforcement models, where the state would hold funds under Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution, yet failed to address the true causes of the financial mismanagement, while ending corruption, enforcing accountability, because these ultimately fail the very community it meant to protect. Let us be clear, we are not debating the rural infrastructure decay as if it is a technical problem. It is not. It is a government failure, a political failure, and ultimately constitutional failure. This debate, therefore, is not about whether the mechanism is existing. We have. The real question is whether these mechanisms are working, and the evidence is clear. They are not. Honorable Chairperson, Section 2162 empowers National Treasury to withhold fund where there is a serious financial misconduct. On paper, it is good. It is one of the strongest tools available to enforce fiscal discipline, but in practical, it has become something else, a procedural response to a systematic failure, rather a tool that produces the real accountability. Because what happens when funds are withheld, the municipality does not suddenly become clean. Corruption does not suddenly stop. Official does not suddenly face consequences. Instead, something for more dangerous happened. Infrastructure projects stall, maintenance budget shrink, water system deteriorate, road become impassable. People in the rural area feel the impact of the local government failures. The AG South Africa reported that 2006 municipality, 83% had material compliance failures, mostly in the areas like procurement, expenditure management, and asset management. Alarmingly, there were 446 material irregularities linked to the non-compliant and suspended fund, leading to the estimated 8.74 billion in financial loss. In total, 162 municipalities are identified as in a financial distress, with poor governance leading to inadequate service and significant losses in water and electricity. The crucial question is whether the withholding of funds under Section 2162 to such municipality where significant underspending is anticipated. However, applying these measures to already distressed municipality can worsen the situation. These areas are often struggling in terms of the essential services, and stopping fund lead to the further breakdown. The problem is especially pronounced in the rural municipality with the limited resources, heavily dependent on transfers. Treasury acknowledge that the government failure as a result of infrastructure maintenance and service delivery. Therefore, the MK party's position is clear. Section 216, subsection 2 should not be seen as a neutral fiscal tool when municipalities are in crisis. It becomes a society regressive by punishing a resident before holding accountable the official at fault.
On that allocation of punishment, your time is expired.
Thank you, Chairperson.
The next speaker on the podium is Mr. M.M. Peter. Is M.M. Peter from the UTM. He's not in the house. I don't know whether he's on the bishop platform. Honorable Peter, are you in the visual platform? I'm going to count down to 3 and then I go to the next speaker. 3, 2, 1. Out. The next speaker who's going to be on the podium is Honorable K. Keza from Mpumalanga. The Provincial Whip of the Day.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the NCOP. Perhaps, Honorable Modise, if we can ask a research question in addition to what we are debating today. I don't know how you process that, the SOP, that as political party and as politicians, actually, we go to rural areas to engage in campaigns where people live. But why is development not going to where people live in the rural areas? Perhaps we should, why out migration? Why the urban bias in development? Those are the things that we should be asking ourselves. Whether this section 216 can be turned into a mechanism that automatically triggers technical turnaround teams to correct fiscal inequities. Whether we have moved, Honorable Chair, towards a procyclical austerity spiral, poor performance that leads to fewer grants, fewer projects, fewer jobs, deep social instability, and why? Chairperson, at the center of this debate is a painful truth that millions of rural South Africans live with every single day. Infrastructure collapse is not an abstract policy issue. It is a lived reality. It is the daily accumulation of the communities who are told to be patient while their dignity is eroded by a state that governs through punishment instead of development. The use of Section 2162 to withhold funds from rural municipalities reflects a dangerous misunderstanding of the structural conditions that define rural governance in South Africa, inconsistent with the provision of Section 154 of the Constitution. It assumes municipalities have control over their financial distress. It assumes fiscal discipline alone can correct systemic underdevelopment. Chairperson, these assumptions are false, but let us move away from theory and speak about the real lives. In Emakhazen local municipality, residents have been waiting since 2024 for the repair of a sewer plant. Families live in overflowing sewage, unbearable odors, and constant fear of diseases. Children walk past areas on their way to school. Elderly residents live with indignity of collapsed sanitation. In Madala Siatutuka Township, Ward 2, Ward 3, Extension 11, another sewer plant remains dysfunctional. Residents wake up not knowing whether basic sanitation will function. This is not inconvenience. It is violation of dignity. In Ward 8 in Belfast, water reservoir project remains incomplete due to poor workmanship. A community promised water security has instead received an unfinished structure, a monument to waste and broken promises. Even more disturbing, Chair, is an indoor multi-purpose sports facility that remained incomplete since 2016. An entire generation has grown up watching an abandoned building instead of accessing opportunity for sports development and social cohesion. Chairperson, these are not isolated incidents. This reflects a crisis. Municipality currently owe more than 467 billion by consumers, including households, private business, and government departments. About 22 billion of this is owed by government itself, yet municipalities owe approximately 105 billion to ESCOM and about 25.5 billion to water boards. This means municipalities are owed far more money than they owe. But instead of aggressively recovering this debt, government chooses to withhold funds from struggling municipalities. This is not fiscal discipline, this is fiscal misdirection. Municipalities are trapped in a vicious cycle. They cannot collect what is owed to them. They fall behind on bulk payment, and then their equitable share is withheld, further weakening their ability to maintain infrastructure and deliver services. Maintenance stops, projects stall. Chairperson, the implications are national. Municipal debt places immense strain on ESCOM's already fragile finances. It threatens the sustainability of water boards and supply bulk water across the country. It accelerates electricity outages water losses and infrastructure. But the root causes, Chairperson, as I conclude, remain unaddressed. A culture of non-payment by some consumers, slow settlement of accounts by government departments, and weak administrative capacity in municipality that cannot attract and retain skills. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Provincial Whip. The next speaker who is going to come to the podium is Honorable Press from the Eastern Cape.
Agbare huisvoorsitter, agbare lede, mede-landsburgers, goeiemiddag. The fathers of our constitution not alive today must be turning in their graves this afternoon. But fortunately, they had the foresight and insight to understand that maybe, just maybe one day, and that day is today, service delivery will collapse in South Africa. And therefore they included Section 216 in the Constitution. But Section 216 action is not an intervention. It is an indictment, a charge sheet against municipalities accusing them of willful, negligent, and in some cases, intentional dereliction of their duties and responsibilities. Section 216 states that National Treasury and national legislation must prescribe measures to ensure both transparency and expenditure control in each sphere of government by introducing generally recognized accounting practices, uniform expenditure classification, and uniform treasury norms and standards. But it also goes further to state that National Treasury must inform compliance with these measures established and may stop the transfers of funds to municipalities if it commits a serious or persistent material breach of these measures. Why are we in this situation? Now, the Constitution answered this question: a lack of transparency, a lack of financial control, a lack of compliance with treasury norms and standards, and a persistent serious material breach of financial measures. Chairperson, rural South Africa is not collapsing because municipalities lack money. It is collapsing because billions meant for infrastructure are sitting idle while communities suffer. Communities still drive on gravel roads, fetch water from tankers or worse, from dirty streams, and they sit in the dark. This crisis is not funding. It is municipalities' failure to spend funds responsibly. We have to ask, who is the mighty political party that governs these overwhelming majority poor-performing municipalities? Year after year, local governments complain about getting too little money from Treasury. Salga comes with presentations and speeches pleading for more money, but the question remains unanswered. What did municipalities do with the money that they indeed received from the Division of Revenue Act? Let's investigate. Municipalities underspent 68.2 billion rand in 2024-25. And who suffered? The residents. 42.1 billion rand of conditional grants transferred went unspent. That is 25% that municipalities did not spend. Who was the greatest loser? The residents. Billions in infrastructure grants were not used. Funds are available, but municipalities simply cannot spend it effectively. Who is waiting in vain for infrastructure to be built? The residents. Chairperson, underspending equals no roads, no water infrastructure, no sanitation, and that is why it is a crime against our citizens. But the evidence keeps on piling up. The Auditor General reviewed 113 infrastructure projects in 2023-24 with a combined value of 12.64 billion rand. Of these, listen to this, 77% had findings, 52% were delayed, and the average delay across the projects was 21 months, nearly 2 years. 17% was of poor quality construction. 8% projects went over the budgets. 6% not used for its intended purposes, in other words, stolen. These audit outcomes confirms that even when money is spent, outcomes are poor. Communities pay twice, once for the project and then to have it fixed later. Only 41 municipalities received clean audits in 2023-24. Now listen to this, 23 of those are DA-run municipalities. The DA governs 12% of municipalities, but holds 56% of clean audits. No adverse or disclaimed audits in DA municipalities. This emphasizes the fact that good governance directly correlates with infrastructure delivery. The issue in today's debate is good leadership on the one hand and accountability on the other hand. The real crisis is that infrastructure funds are being misused. To illustrate this point, municipal debt to Eskom stands at around about 116 billion rands, and water boards are owed over 25 billion by municipalities. So, National Treasury are already forced to withhold funds under Section 2162 to compel payment plans because infrastructure money is swallowed up by operational failures, and therefore withholding funds become necessary to protect essential service delivery. Who are the victims? Who are being held to ransom? The residents. But who will suffer again if funds are being withheld? The residents. The consequences for rural communities are severe. They will suffer the most because of infrastructure being delayed, water projects stalled, roads deteriorating, and electricity interruptions. Underspending translates directly into deepening inequality. Withholding of funds, however, must be accompanied with restraint. Funds should be targeted but be linked to recovery plans and must ensure that communities are protected and not punished further. Chairperson, we cannot keep on sending billions to municipalities where accountability is absent. Withholding funds at this stage is protection. Protection of taxpayers' money. Protection of taxpayers, protection of infrastructure, and most importantly, protection of rural communities who deserve delivery, not excuses like we've heard speech after speech today. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Brett. The next speaker is on the visual platform is Councillor Pukunzi from Salga. Over to you, ma'am. Councillor Pukunzi.
No, Chair, thanks. Good afternoon to your good self and the members of the NCOP, Chair. The debate today are very interesting, Chair. Before I get to what I wanted to input, let me just put a scenario, Chair, to say before 1994, we had a very few population that was given the services in the country. And then the infrastructure that we have, Chair, compared to the population that we have today and compared to what happened pre-1994, then when we speak, we must speak with that in the back of our mind. Furthermore, Chair, we want to bring to the attention of the NCOP to say, even though it has been claimed that the municipalities are owing the water boards and the ESCOM a lot of money, but what is owed to municipality compared to that? If we can get what is owed to us, we'll be able to settle and have a surplus, Chairperson. But let me then get to what I'm here for. As Salga, we are pleased to participate in this debate on invocation of the Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution, and the implications for municipalities across our country, particularly rural and district municipalities, which are not water service authorities. The two most rural provinces in the country, Limpopo and the Eastern Cape, experience a decline of the local government equitable share as per the FFC 2026 and DORA submission. We meet today at a time when fiscal accountability within local governments is under intense scrutiny. National Treasury has invoked the provisions of Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution and Section 38 of the Municipal Finance Management Act, resulting in the withholding of the local government equitable share for over 75 municipalities during the December 2025 tranche and 26 municipalities for the March tranche This action, as you are aware, is part of what National Treasury calls enforcement mechanism aimed at ensuring financial discipline, transparency, accountability, and adherence to the norms and standards that govern our municipal financial management system. As much as National Treasury actions are not arbitrary and they are rooted in the constitutional and legislative prescripts, Chair, the question is withholding an equitable share the only remedy or right mechanism to use to ensure compliance? Honorable Chair, we ask ourselves what is the purpose of the equitable share and what is the legislative framework that governs it? Finally, Section 214, subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Division of the Revenue Act is to provide for an equitable division of revenue raised nationally amongst all spheres of government. DORA must promote predictably and a certainty and respect of all allocations to provinces and municipalities, and promote transparency and accountability in the resource allocation processes. Withholding of equitable share in the middle of the municipal budget, yes, clearly does not promote predictability and certainty budget planning. It surely does not promote transparency in the process, as municipalities are not given sufficient time to comply before equitable share is being withheld. The equitable share formula, Honorable Chair, is intended to fund basic services and shared community service for poor households and the institutional capacity to support the poor households. The revenue adjustment factor is intended to ensure that funds are directed to weaker, mostly rural municipalities. Currently, municipalities are being allocated equitable share utilizing poor household data, which is outdated as it is based on the 2011 state census. Secondly, Salga study and other research, FFC and PARI, has found that equitable share formula is the current in its current form is not being adequate. Equitable share formula of municipalities are currently withheld due to non-reduction and consequence management of UIFWE, non-adoption and implementation of credible funding plans, and failure to pay creditors within 30 days, like SARS, pension funds, water boards, and AGSA. Honorable Chair, if withholding continues, the consequence will be severe on municipalities. It disrupts budget planning, delays payments of commitments, which results in interest on debt, which further plunges municipality into more debt and unauthorized expenditure. And the debt that the ESCOM is also, everybody speaking about the debt of ESCOM. They don't speak about the interest that is charged by ESCOM on the regulatory framework that is not the mandate of ESCOM. Into more debt and unauthorized expenditure. More debt may lead to reduced services by creditors, and that may impact on quality of service delivery. Withholding of equitable share is more than just a compliance and consequence matter. It strikes at the heart of service delivery, community trust, and a constitutional promise of developmental local government and service delivery. Our task is not only to strengthen the financial governance foundations of municipalities, but to protect the unintended consequence of prejudicing the very poor households of services and infrastructure they need. Honorable Chair, we are calling on National Treasury to look at other mechanisms to instill compliance and consequence which do not perpetuate increased debts, unpaid creditors, and unauthorized expenditure. We are calling for a predictability and certainty of budget planning of municipalities. We are calling for a fair applications of the Constitution which protects all citizens of this country and all institutions of government, not to be used to demonize and victimize municipalities. Honorable Chair, we are calling on National Treasury not to be biased on only target local government. Section 216 of the Constitution applies to all spheres of government and organs of states who do not comply with norms and standards of the PFMA. Honorable Chair, municipalities are owed about 27.6 billion and government and 538.57 billion, which is 92% of the irregular expenditure, was incurred by the national provinces, and none of their equitable share was withheld. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, as Salga will remain committed to supporting municipality and advocating for fairness and justiceness, ensuring that no community is left behind because of administrative and governance failures. But Chair, it cannot be correct that we come here today and claim that where the other party is governing, there is a clean audit. Clean audit does not translate to the service delivery. We can prove that, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for your inputs today. Good afternoon, honourable delegates, ladies and gentlemen. The next speaker at the podium is the Honourable H.J. van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair. Today I will be delivering a speech on behalf of my colleague, Tammy Breed, who's on Oversight. So I hope I do a speech justice. Thank you. That is true. Today we are debating Section 216.2 of the Constitution, the withholding of municipal funds. But let's be clear from the outset, this is not just a legal or technical matter. This is about people. Dit gaan oor gemeenskappe wat elke dag lei. Local development is the sphere closest to the people. It's where service delivery must happen. Water, electricity, sanitation. Wat sien ons in werklikheid? In Parys en die Vrystaat was daar gister alleen geen krag, geen water, renewal in die vlei lande, 'n onrybare R59 as enigste alternatief en 'n rivier met die potensiaal om die dorp te vloed. Ons sien dus mislukking, ons sien swak bestuur en uiteindelik sien ons gemeenskappe wat betaal vir hierdie mislukkings. The reality is this. Municipalities are not complying with the law. They are violating the MFMA. They incur billions in irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. They pass unfunded budgets. They fail to pay creditors like Eskom and water boards. En wat gebeur dan? Artikel 216.2 word toegepas. Fondse word teruggehou. Now the question we must ask is, who really suffers when funds are withheld? Is it the politicians? Is it the officials? No, dit is die mense. Dit is die belastingbetaler. Dis die inwoner wat alreeds sukkel. When funds are withheld, municipalities cannot pay salaries, cannot maintain infrastructure, cannot deliver services. Water stops running. Electricity becomes unstable. Refuge is not collected. Hierdie is nie net administratiewe probleme nie. Dit raak mense se daaglikse lewens. But let us also be honest. Section 216.2 does not exist without reason. Dis nie 'n straf sonder rede nie. Dis 'n korrektiewe meganisme. It is invoked because municipalities persistently fail to meet basic financial standards, because they ignore legislation, because there are no consequences for poor governance. So yes, withholding funds has devastating short-term consequences. Maar die werklike probleem lê dieper. Die werklike probleem is wanbestuur. In the Free State, the data is clear. Municipalities are struggling with low revenue collection, around 55%, far below the required 95%. Debts are skyrocketing into tens of billions. Creditors are not being paid. Conditional grants are misused. Dit wys vir ons een ding. Die stelsel werk nie soos dit moet nie. And yet, communities are expected to keep paying. Taxpayers are expected to fund a system that does not deliver. From a Freedom Front Plus perspective, we must stand firmly for accountability, good governance, and financial discipline. Ons glo in 'n staat wat werk, nie een wat mors nie. We cannot continue to tolerate a situation where municipalities break the law without consequence. Funds are mismanaged and communities are punished twice, first by failure, then by fund withholding. So what is the way forward? Firstly, strict enforcement of the MFMA without political interference. Tweedens, die werklike aanspreeklikheid, nie net verslae en waarskuwings nie, maar gevolge vir wanbestuur. Thirdly, protection of communities. When funds are withheld, mechanisms must ensure that basic services can still continue, because the Constitution is not only about compliance, it is also about dignity. In closing, Section 216.2 is not the enemy, it's a symptom. Die werklike vyand is swak bestuur, korrupsie en 'n gebrek aan aanspreeklikheid. Until we fix that, communities will continue to suffer en dit is onaanvaarbaar. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Van den Berg. Honourable delegates, the next speaker at the podium might be putting in a claim for overtime today, but it is the Honourable Nuwe.
Thank you, Chairperson of the session. Chairperson, just before I start with my presentation, I just want to say specifically to Honorable Swart and many others who unfortunately came to this podium just to tell us about the negatives. It's unfortunate that if you drive in a town and you decide to go to a landfill, you will get debt. And when you drive inside town, you decide to close your eyes to look at the good things. That's not our problem. However, if I can't reach where I want to respond to that, I will just advise Honorable Swart to go and look for a rural infrastructure development, Region 2, which is dealing with Free State, Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Northwest, that so much is being done. And I want to say Free State, it's not collapsing. Free State is well alive to respond to the challenges, and I will get there at the end. Challenges and opportunities of infrastructure development in local government. The 1994 Foundation, which is a legacy of expansion. Honorable Chairperson, as we journey through this decisive year of 2026, we must begin by acknowledging the monumental journey of our democratic states. Since 1994, the ANC-led government has overseen an infrastructure expansion unparalleled in our continent's history. We moved from a society where dignity was a geographic privilege to one where millions gained access to electricity, clean water, and formal housing for the very first time. The numbers tell a story of radical inclusion. Since the dawn of our democracy, we have connected over 5.8 million households to the grid, reduced the percentage of homes without electricity from 50% to roughly 14%, and provided basic water supply to an additional 9 million people. We have built more than 3.7 million subsidized housing opportunities, giving a roof to over 12 million of our people, fellow citizens, and that is a proof of what is existing in our areas. However, we are not here today to merely recite our history, as others did. We are here to confront its remaining shadows. While we have built millions of homes, the apartheid spatial architecture remains a stubborn ghost in our machinery. Our people were intentionally pushed to the periphery, far from economic hubs and quality health care. Honorable members, the 2026 national budget marked a fundamental shift in our fiscal architecture. For too long, National Treasury acted primarily as gatekeeper of the equitable share. But as the President noted in his January 8th statement, the challenge of this phase is not a lack of policy, but uneven execution. Treasury is now moving from passive oversight to active structural intervention. In this financial year, our government committed over 1.1 trillion to public sector infrastructure over the medium term. But this money comes with a maintenance first mandate. Treasury has identified that poor municipal investment has created a passive backlog, including a 64 billion rand water crisis in Johannesburg alone. That means we acknowledge
the setbacks, and the challenges, and we are dealing with them. The district development model, the one plan revolution. The Honorable Chairperson, the turning of the tides requires us to break the pattern of operating in silos. The district development model is our primary operational framework to bridge the gap between planning and delivery. The DDM does not replace the constitutional autonomy of our municipalities. Rather, it provides a single window of truth through the one plan. This ensures that when a national department plans a road, the local municipality has already budgeted for the pipes beneath it. By aligning the budget of all three spheres of government across our 44 districts and 8 metros, we are eliminating the silo mentality that has wasted billions in duplicative planning. The DDM further allows us to strategically channel resources into areas where capacity is weakest, directly addressing the under-resourced, specifically homelands where I come from, of the past and turning them into vibrant local economies. The ANC, NEC Lekgotla, affirmed that the 2026 is a year of decisive action to fix the local government, not to complain about it. We are shifting from fragmented interventions to coordinated delivery. We are professionalizing the public service by deploying technical strike teams to distressed councils and accelerating the review of the local government funding model to ensure sustainability. We are also confronting the construction mafias. We are confronting the construction mafias and infrastructure vandals who hold our development hostage. This year, we are intensifying oversight and making it clear infrastructure is public asset and its protection its national priority. Honorable members, we are turning the tide. And turning the tide is about restoring the social contract. It is about ensuring that the child in a rural village has the same access to opportunity as the child in suburban metro. We are dismantling the apartheid geography and replacing it with an inclusive geography of hope. We have the constitutional tools through Section 216, subsection 2, to ensure integrity in the DDM and to ensure coordination. Now we have the political will to execute. 2026 will be remembered as the year we stopped the decay and started the renewal. Chairperson, a common critique of our interventionist approach is that it undermines the constitutional autonomy of the local sphere. Let us correct that record. The Constitution does not grant a right to fail or a license to collapse. The Intergovernmental Relations Framework Act was never intended to be a shield for ineptitude and lack of capacity, but it is a bridge for cooperation. In 2026, we are moving beyond the siloed grant system. Our government is now experimenting with consolidated capital grants at the district level. This allows for massive cross-boundary infrastructure projects like regional water schemes that serve 3 or 4 local municipalities to be funded as a single unit. We are not taking away the powers of local councils. Government is providing them with the technical shared services they cannot afford on their own. By placing professional engineers and town planners at the district level, we ensure that a small local municipality in a rural area has access to the same grade of technical expertise as a major metro. Honorable Chairperson, it is about time that we must move the debate from pipes and bricks to lives and livelihoods. The deterioration of rural infrastructure is a direct assault on the dignity of our people. For too long, we celebrated the ribbon cutting of new projects while allowing existing assets to rot. National Treasury's 2026 circulars now mandate at least 8% of the value of municipal property and equipment must be allocated to repairs and maintenance annually. We are using satellite imaginary, IoT, Internet of Things, sensors funded through the Department of Science and Innovation to monitor water leakage and grid sustainability in real time across our 44 districts to monitor leakages and grid stability. We are turning the tide, and which is being powered by the fourth industrial revolution to ensure that when a pump fails in a rural village, the National Command Center knows before the taps runs dry. As I conclude, Honorable Chair and honorable members, let us remember that the citizens of South Africa are not interested in our jurisdictional disputes. They are interested in whether the lights stay on, whether the water is clean, and whether the road to the clinic is paved. As the ANC, we declared 2026 decisive year because we recognize that in times luxury we no longer have. We are using every tool in our constitutional arsenal, Honorable Baden-Ost. Section 216, subsection 2, to guard the fiscus. The DDM, to align our vision. National Treasury, to unlock the capital. We are turning the tide from a legacy of spatial to a future of spatial equity and justice. We are building a state that is not only capable in theory, but in deliverable, in practice. Let history record that in 2026, we chose hard path of reform over the easy path of excuses. Just to give Honorable what I wanted to give to him, he will be lucky if I don't get it. Chairperson.
19 seconds.
That Free State provincial government is actively addressing rural infrastructure degradation, particularly roads, crucial for agriculture, through a 2026 pilot in partnership with Infrastructure South Africa and Agri-SA. And this initiative follows reports that poor access have accessed and economic loss exceeding.
Time has unfortunately expired, Honourable Member.
So I will send it to you.
Thank you, Honourable Nue. I think that would be the best solution. Unfortunately, your time did expire. Honourable delegates, it's now the turn of the Western Cape MEC for infrastructure, and that is the Honourable Tertius Simmers.
Honourable House Chairperson, honourable members present physically and also those online from across the country and residents of South Africa. This debate asks a serious question if you look at it. What must government do when municipalities actually fail their people? But more importantly, what must government do when that failure is not caused by a lack of funding, but by weak municipal governance, political appointments, financial mismanagement, and the steady collapse of administrative capacity? Because that is the real reason rural infrastructure is deteriorating across South Africa. Roads are not maintained. Water systems are failing. Wastewater plants are breaking down. Electricity networks are unstable. Not because the Constitution failed, not because Treasury failed, but because in too many rural municipalities, the wrong people were appointed to do the most significant of jobs. Chairperson, South Africa does not have a funding crisis in local government. South Africa has a municipal governance crisis in our rural areas. In the 2023-2024 audit outcomes, fewer than 20% of municipalities achieved clean audits in South Africa, equating to nearly 80% actually failing financially, administratively, or operationally or all three of them at the same time, depending on which province you go to. And who governs the overwhelming majority of those failing rural municipalities we are talking about here today? The African National Congress. They either govern it outright, or post-2021, they are even governing in coalitions with partners just as bad as the African National Congress. Infrastructure does not collapse because money stops. Infrastructure collapses because governance stops working. And when governance fails, our people, our families actually suffer first, and they suffer the most. Chairperson, Section 216, subsection 2 of the Constitution exists for exactly these circumstances. It allows funds to be withheld when a municipality commits a serious breach of financial management legislation. But this should not be seen as a punishment. It is actually protection. Protection for our people, protection for the taxpayers who ensure that these funds are available, and protection for the integrity of the state. So Section 216 is not a weapon. It is a safeguard. It exists because this Constitution recognizes a simple truth. We cannot continue transferring public money to institutions that cannot account for it, that cannot manage it, and cannot turn it into services for our people. Withholding funds does not cause collapse. Collapse begins long before that. Collapse begins when discipline disappears. Collapse begins when cadre deployment replaces competence. Collapse begins when political loyalty matters more than technical ability. And once that happens, no amount of funding will save infrastructure. Chairperson, in the Western Cape, we do not wait for collapse. We constructively intervene early. We constructively intervene lawfully. And we constructively intervene to protect our people, not to protect politicians. Over the past few years, the Western Cape government has had to step in repeatedly where municipal governance failures placed infrastructure and services delivery at risk. Not because we want control, because our people cannot drink ideology. People cannot drive on slogans. People need water, roads, sanitation, and electricity that works. And let me give this House real examples of what I'm talking about from within our own province. In Beaufort West, severe water losses, aging infrastructure, and weak financial controls placed this town at risk. Provincial support had to be deployed to stabilize the municipality and protect service delivery. Go to Kannaland, financial distress and political instability over a number of years threatened the ability of the municipality to function at all. Without our intervention, services would have collapsed in Kannaland. In Laingsburg, persistent financial and technical weaknesses required oversight to ensure that the municipality could actually continue to operate. Let's go to the West Coast. In Matsikama, administrative failures by a number of coalition-led governments and instability placed infrastructure programs at risk, and provincial support was needed to restore discipline and stability in that municipality. Ironically, it's different towns, different parts of our province, but there's the same pattern: weak governance and failing system brought on by unstable coalition-led governments. And who pays the price? Our people, our families continue to pay the price. But Chairperson, the clearest example is Knysna. Yes, I will talk about Knysna in this House. In 2025, the Western Cape government invoked Section 139 to dissolve Knysna Municipal Council after years of instability, yes, brought on by coalition government. There was governance failures, and we saw deteriorating service delivery. So we did not take as a government this decision lightly. It was taken because financial management had broken down. Infrastructure was deteriorating, and the municipality could no longer even guarantee basic services to the towns that form Knysna. So this province acted to stabilize the situation and to prevent total collapse of what used to be the crown jewel in the garden route. But what happened next? And I'm coming to this House where I'm standing today, the National Council of Provinces. You voted to block the intervention, despite the evidence, despite the audit findings, despite the warnings from our province. And the result? not even a few weeks after you had voted, NISE now continues to face crisis after crisis, including the declaration of a local disaster linked directly to failures of infrastructure and service delivery. So when lawful intervention is blocked for political reasons, it is not government that suffers. It is the people of NISE and the families who are there without water today. It is towns with failing sewage works. It is rural roads that cannot be maintained. It is local economies that cannot grow. So blocking intervention does not protect municipalities, honourable members. It actually protects dysfunction. So, honourable members, we must be honest in this house today. Rural infrastructure deterioration did not start with Section 216. It started with years of cater deployment, weak oversight, irregular spending, unqualified appointments, and councils that put politics before people. And when government finally acts to stop the damage, those interventions are sometimes opposed, not because those interventions are wrong, but because they are politically inconvenient for the national government. That is not oversight, honourable members. That is avoidance of your function and your role. And our people pay the price, not the politicians that are being protected because of that decision. So, Chairperson, the Western Cape government supports accountability. We support the Constitution. We support Section 216 because public money must be protected. But we also believe that withholding funds must go together with support, oversight, and technical assistance, and when necessary, lawful intervention. Because the goal is not to punish municipalities. The goal must be to fix them. The goal must be to stabilize them. And the goal must be to protect the people who ultimately live in those municipalities. And in the Western Cape, this approach for us has worked. We have the highest number of clean audits. We have the most stable municipalities. We have some of the best infrastructure outcomes in the country. This is not by accident. This is by discipline, by planning, by appointing competent and qualified people. Because money does not fix municipalities. Governance does. Funding does not build infrastructure. Competence does. And no law in this country can save a municipality that refuses to appoint capable people. Chairperson, we must decide in this house what we stand for. Do we stand for accountability or excuses? Do we stand for service delivery or political protection? Do we stand for our people or for failing councils? Rural communities deserve better. They deserve working infrastructure. They deserve reliable services. They deserve municipalities that serve the people, not political networks. And when municipalities fail them, government must act, not to take power, but to restore service, not to punish, but to protect, not for politics, but for our people. And that is what the Constitution demands. That is what responsible government requires. And that is the position of the Western Cape. And we will not apologize for defending it. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Simmers. Honourable delegates, the next speaker at the podium is the Honourable BJ Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson. I never knew there would be a day that I agree with Honourable Simmers. Matsikama is a dumb. Unfortunately, he's governed by the DA. Honourable Chairperson, what's incredible to hear is that one day, when the DA governs, a municipality is the jewel of the province. The very next day, when the DA lose control, it's a dump. Honourable Chairperson, honourable members, I greet you in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Saviour. Today we debate a matter that goes to the heart of governance, accountability, and the lived reality of our people. The withholding of municipal funds under Section 216, subsection 2 of our Constitution, and the devastating impact this has on rural infrastructure. Honourable members, let us be honest. Rural infrastructure in our country is not deteriorating by accident. It is deteriorating because of years of poor governance, weak leadership, and lack of accountability. We have municipalities that cannot manage finances. We have projects that start but are never completed. We have money that disappears while communities wait for water, roads, and electricity. And when the National Treasury steps in to withhold funds, it does so within the law to enforce discipline. But here's the real question we must ask today. Who is really being punished? It is not the corrupt official. It is not the failing administrator. It is the ordinary person in the rural village, in the township, in the forgotten community. It is the mother who still walks kilometers for water. It is the child who travels on unsafe roads to school. It is the community that sits in darkness while infrastructure collapses. Honourable Chairperson, the Patriotic Alliance is clear. We support accountability. We support consequences for mismanagement. We support the rule of law. But we will never support the system.
Very Honourable Farmer, would you take your seat for a moment, please? Honourable Badenhorst, on what are you rising?
I'm rising on Rule 61B, Chair.
Yes, please go ahead.
This honourable member just said that the PA supports accountability, yet we haven't heard what happened to all that money they raised in Sandton for Beaufort West. It's a couple of million rand that's gone missing, and that's not accountability. It's misleading the House.
I think that's a point for debate, perhaps not a point of order, Honourable Badenhorst. If you can continue your speech, please, Honourable Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson. We do support the rule of law, but we will never support a system where communities pay the price for leadership failures. Because governance is not about punishment, it is about delivery. Honourable Members, Section 216, Subsection 2 is a necessary tool, but it cannot be used in isolation. You cannot withdraw funding without fixing the problem. You cannot discipline municipalities without building capacity. You cannot enforce accountability without ensuring service delivery continues. The Patriotic Alliance believes in a balanced approach. Where there is corruption, act decisively. Where there is mismanagement, intervene directly. But where there are communities, protect them at all costs. We must ask, why are failing municipalities allowed to continue without proper intervention? Why do we not deploy skilled administrators immediately? Why do we not ring-fence funds specifically for service delivery? Why do we not ensure that infrastructure projects continue even when governance fails? Honourable Members, good governance is not just about rules, it's about results. And the result we must achieve is simple: functioning municipalities, working infrastructure, dignified communities. The Patriotic Alliance stands for a government that works, a government that does not hide behind policy but delivers in practice, a government that ensures that when money is allocated, people see the impact. Because our people are not asking for explanations, they are asking for delivery. Honourable Chairperson, let us not allow financial enforcement measures to deepen inequality between urban and rural communities. Let these measures strengthen accountability, not create further suffering. Let them correct failure, not collapse already struggling municipalities. Let us fix what is broken within the system without punishing the very people we are meant to serve. Because at the end of the day, governance must restore dignity, not take it away. Salute.
Thank you, Honourable Farmer. Delegates, the next speaker at the podium is the Honourable Dr. Skierkogel with 6 minutes.
Agbare Voorsitter, honorable members, Dumelang, Ma-Afrika Borwa Haheso. The Constitution under Section 216 allows National Treasury to stop funds to municipalities that persistently fail to meet financial management. This is a mechanism for accountability. In reality, especially in rural South Africa, it has become a blunt instrument that punishes communities for the failure of governance and unethical leaders. Rural infrastructure is collapsing not because there is not funding, it's because there is no consequence management, lack of accountability, and shortage of capacity because of cater deployment. When Treasury withholds funds from struggling municipalities, it's not just it does not discipline the political elite responsible. It deprives already marginalized rural communities of water, sanitation, roads, and electricity. Chairperson, in the 2023-2024 Section 48 report on local government, it clearly shows that all provinces but one lacks Section 105 of the Systems Act to implement accountability. The Western Cape has enacted the Monitoring and Support of Municipal Acts 4 of 2024, which empowers the province to make sure that there's accountability and early warning systems is implemented. Consider what fund withholding means in practice. A municipality already failing to maintain its water treatment plants now loses the very funding required to repair them. Roads already riddled with potholes deteriorating further because maintenance budgets are focused. Clinics, schools, and local communities suffers. The core issue is not simply financial compliance, but capacity. Many rural municipalities lacked skilled technical expertise and institutional stability. Withholding funds without simultaneously providing meaningful support under Section 154 of the South African Constitution is not governance, it's abandonment. The Constitution envisages support before sanction, not punishment without remedy. Furthermore, we must interrogate the political economy of this mechanism. Why is it rural municipalities are the most affected? Why is enforcement inconsistent? Why are individuals responsible for mismanagement rarely held accountable under the Municipal Finance Management Act? If there is finance misconduct, then officials responsible, municipal managers, CFOs, and political office bearers must face the consequences, including the recovery of funds and criminal prosecution. But to cut off funds to entire municipality is to punish the residents for governance failures which they did not create. The destruction of local government over the past 30 years won't be fixed by invoking a section of the Constitution. Conditional funding linked to stricter oversight based on performance, deployed skilled specialist teams with clear mandates and terms of references to implement and ring-fence infrastructure grants that cannot be diverted. This must be coupled with real-time monitoring and transparent reporting. Chairperson, I'm so glad that I can contribute to this House because clearly Honourable Makasini listened to me and she tried to tell another compelling story following mine yesterday, but clearly all that I heard was grey noise and wait, no, my speech disappeared. Oh, like your ideology. Then the MEC, I'm so glad, the MEC of Gauteng, I'm so glad what you said, and I hope you will implement it because you clearly highlighted what Gauteng province is not doing. Action speaks louder than words. Arman Malakami, you remind me of an American celebrity, Jaden Essenholz. Look over there! Look over there! Which is a typical ANC tactic to distract the people of South Africa. Honorable Gadebe, I'm so glad you are so polite because these virtual viruses that you had that corrupted us afternoon with malware, that debate, but it didn't load. But what I also find very uplifting is that all the ANC speakers didn't mention one solution, only where they have fallen short. Look over there. Wait. That is a distraction for the 2026, the year to fix local government. So you confirm since 2021, you broke it. But at least you have a loaf for one home, ANC, ne? Then, Honourable Farmer, I'm not sure where you fit into the swingers party, but I guess the voice note will soon reveal that. But I guess the Biza circus is handing out Smarties because the new name for the PA is panic attack, because that's what will happen when the WhatsApp drama goes out. Honorable Neo, you're correct. The Free State is alive with Equali and poof on the streets. It's alive with the biggest crime scenes of South Africa, and yes, alive in daylight robbery. Honorable Keza, I'm so glad you brought in austerity in your speech, because without that, you won't have a speech. Honorable Modise, I humbly request that you allow some Q&A in your speech, because to add some life to this debate, because the actual contributions in this debate topic is so uninspiring as to everything for Free Party that brought this debate. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Skierkogel. Honorable delegates, the next at the podium will be the Honorable Modise from Gauteng and the African National Congress.
Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Refilwe Mtsweni-Tsipane, Deputy Chairperson, Honorable Les Gavenda, Honorable Minister Nyoncho, Honorable MECs, both physical and online, Honorable Members, physical and online, special delegates, people of South Africa, Sanbonan. Honorable Ryder, due to the seriousness of the topic for debate today, I promise I will not speak about the flip-flopping of the EFF on General Mukwanazi. From we are Mukwanazi and Mukwanazi is us to Mukwanazi must leave us alone. I will not enter there. I also promise not to talk about Democratic Alliance and how they continue to kill up-and-coming educated black leaders, like they did with Honorable Karabo Khawkhaw, Lindiwe Mazibuko, Musi Maimani, and the list goes on and on. Nor will I speak about the White Boys Privilege Club for the sake of those 4 members of parliament. I hope they've declared that extra source of income. Chairperson, as we stood together 4 days ago to commemorate the Sharpeville massacre, we were reminded that the freedom of South Africa was not negotiated politely. It was paid for in blood. On the 21st of March 1960, unarmed men, women, and children were gunned down for daring to demand dignity. The apartheid regime tried to bury the truth, but history refused to cooperate. The official figure of 69 tells only the certain part of the story, while the real number lives on the unmarked graves, broken families, and silent voices. Today, we do more than remember. We acknowledge the pain that was denied. We honor the lives that were dismissed as disposal. And we recommit ourselves to a simple truth. A democratic state that failed its people is a betrayal to the people of Sharpeville. We have entered 2026, a year that the mighty and glorious African National Congress, the People's Movement, has declared the decisive year to fix local government. But let us be honest with ourselves. If the year ends with speeches in state of service, it will mean nothing to the woman who still walk kilometers for water. 2026 is not a slogan year. It is a year to repair. Our people are tired, not politically tired, but physically tired. Tired of broken pipes, tired of dark streets, tired of promises that do not reach their homes. This House can no longer manage decline and call it governance. Local government will either be fixed now or it will collapse on our children. For too long, the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality have been exacerbated by the delivery deficit at the municipal level. Today, we declare that the era of managing decline is over. We are now in the business of engineering a recovery. And at the center of this recovery is a historic commitment of over 1.1 trillion of public infrastructure for the next 3 years. This money is not in abstract, Chairperson. It is for a road a child uses to get to school. It is for a clinic where a mother waits for care. And it is for water flowing from tap instead of the river. The 1.1 trillion is not an announcement. It is a test of whether the state still takes its people seriously. If it does not reach the ground, it becomes betrayal and not budget. Chairperson, the scale of investment demands courage, the courage to change old habits. Treasury is no longer a passive payer. It is now a custodian of people's trust. Money will no longer move because the data appears on the calendar. It will move when there's a performance, progress, and proof. In one financial year alone, 3.4 billion was returned for underspending. Every rent returned represents a child who waited longer, a village that remained forgotten. Returned infrastructure funds are not savings, they are a stolen opportunity. We should bring in skills where hope is fading. Honorable members, we cannot build dignity with incompetence. You cannot build infrastructure with slogans and ghost engineers. And you cannot ask communities to believe again if projects keep failing and collapsing. When engineers arrive in a municipality that has not seen technical support in years, something shifts. Hope becomes practical, plans becomes possible. MISA is not visiting municipalities, it's occupying engineering room where real changes happens. Chairperson, there's nothing radical about demanding competence. In fact, it is insulting to be governed by people who are unqualified to serve. Professionalization is not elitism, it is respect for the people suffering. When some of you here opposed minimum qualification for councillors, you were not defending democracy, you were defending disorder. We must declare here and today, Honorable Siwis, for all South Africans to know that no qualification, no council seat. Because our people deserve leaders who are prepared, capable, serious, and educated. Planning, monitoring, and ending the culture of excuses is of paramount importance. Infrastructure does not fail by accident. It fails because systems look away. A clinic without a road is not development. It is negligence. That is why the district development model matters. That is why monitoring matters. That is why abandoned sites will no longer hide in silence. If a contractor disappears, the system will act because monitoring delayed is accountability denied. Chairperson, let us remember, pipes do not fail. People fail to manage them. That is why we must invest in skills, ethics, and leadership. Because without capable people, even the best plans dies quietly. We do not need officials who merely comply. We need officials who cares. This debate is not for applause. It is for prosperity. Years from now, our children and grandchildren will ask what we said in this house. They will not ask they will ask whether water flowed, whether roads lasted, whether government showed up when it was needed. Let us turn the tide, not with anger, not with slogans, but with skills, discipline, and unshakable commitment to our people. Let 2026 mean something. Chairperson, as we conclude, let us remember that the true record of this parliament is not kept on Hansard alone. It is written in the lives of our people, quietly, daily, and without applause. It is written in the hands of a grandmother who waits for water that should have arrived years ago. It is written in the cracked tar road that turns an ordinary journey into a danger. It is written in the darkness of the street that should have been lit, and the silence of a clinic that should have been staffed. These are not statistics. These are our people. These are the realities. And so, Chairperson, we must speak plainly and act decisively. A state cannot deliver the basic. We must speak plainly and decisively. A state that cannot deliver the basics is a state that weakens the dignity of its own democracy. We commemorate Sharpeville, where South Africans were denied the right to be seen as humans. It should never be said that in freedom we're denied our people's dignity through neglect. It should never be said that we inherited sacrifice and returned excuses. 2026 Honorable Badenhorst must mean something because you are making noise. I don't know why. Not us in this chamber, but to those that are far from microphones. To the child who walks to school through mud because a road was promised but never built. To the family that measures each day by whether the taps runs. To the young person whose hope is delayed, not by ability but by abandonment. Chairperson, we're not merely debating infrastructure. We're deciding whether government still remembers who it exists for. Let us therefore turn the tide slowly, steadily, without retreat, until stills becomes bridges, until concrete becomes clinic, until plans becomes pipes, until budgets become living dignity. And when history asks us, what did we do with our moment right now? Let our answer be simple and true. We chose competency over convenience. We chose accountability over comfort. And we chose service over slogans. We place the people back at the center of the state. May the roads we build outlast our terms of office. May the water that flows outlive our arguments. May the work of 2026 become the gift to those who are yet to be born. That is our duty, that is our commitment, and that is our honor that the past by delivering the future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Modise. Honorable delegates, in line with our rules now, I would like to invite the Honorable Makasini back to the podium to close the debate.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Thank you very much for all the people who participated to this debate, and we all agree about the challenges that are facing the people of South Africa and the challenges that affect the rural municipality. And we all agree the accountability, it needs to be the issue of the day. We are not fighting accountability. Accountability must happen. Indeed, Honorable Modise, there's nothing that we can say about the EFF. There were nothing that we were supposed to say. The debate was not about the EFF. The debate was about the Section 216 subsection 2. And we want to thank also the Salga, especially for their contribution. In fact, the contribution of Salga, iyabonakala ngabantu aba-affected daily that are experiencing the challenge of service of delivery. They are the core face of service delivery. If people protest, they are the first one to be the victims and their families. And we need to check and the modality how to reinforce and support the rural municipality. So the DA, I thought they are going to outline the support that they have done previously to NASDA and the issue, the support that they are doing in their areas like Mfuleni, Danone, Khayelitsha, because the people of Khayelitsha, the people of NASDA, if the provincial government were given the support initially, I don't think we would have found a human body on the drain. If the provincial government were there to guide and support the municipality, I don't think the challenge of service delivery were there. We can still have an opportunity, Honorable MEC, to go back and work, even if we don't agree with the people who are in the council. Your responsibility is to give support. The debate is not about the municipalities, it's about the provincial government, the national government, nor the municipality. Let us not put this debate on the issue of the municipalities only. So thank you very much. Honorable Badinos, to be honest, there's nothing that I can say. Kumtu omdala nje ogulayo ongazaziyo uba ufuna ntoni apha. There was no VPS debate here, and there's no leader of the economic freedom fighter that was once arrested. So uyagula madala, you must get help so that the people of South Africa can see ukuthi uyagula. Chairperson, we had already today in the council that the cutting off of the supplier on the money of the local council will force the root cause of corruption and it will improve the service delivery. However, this logic of these fundamental flaws, the flaws that financial mismanagement in municipality is often a symptom of a deeper structural crisis, a lack of viable tax base in rural areas, and a chronic shortage of technical skills. We need, when you do this intervention, we need to support the people who have skills so that when they leave, they left the skill in the municipality. Chairperson, When the treasurer stops equitable share, it does not magically created a skill and accountants or engineer in the rural municipality, because everything, if they stop, service delivery stop. If maybe banabatlaga mechanism that as they are doing this, they are sending the team to come and intervene in the municipality so that the persistence after their intervention cannot continue. We'll appreciate that. When National Treasury invokes Section 216, subsection 2, small-scale infrastructure projects such as a paving and the rural roads in the building of the clinic are abandoned, a midway leading to the wasteful expenditure, and the funds are already spent. When the National Treasury invokes Section 216, subsection 2, local, small, medium, and macro-medium enterprise that rely on municipal contracts go bankrupt and further eroded the local and economic and increase unemployment. We can see in the municipality of Western Cape, we can see in the municipality of Free State, you can see Mfuleni ukuthi abantu bahlupheka njani. In this essence, the correction is directed at a wrong target, because abantu ababa affected are the people on the ground. We are not doing anything about the officials who occupy the position, those who did not submit the financial statement to the municipality, and it affects really our people on the ground. When National Treasury also invoke the Section 216, subsection 2. The Constitution is used to punish a whole community for administrative failure of a few. This is a direct violation of a human rights, dignity, the right of the basic services enshrined in the Bill of Rights. Then, as the House Chairperson, the EFF has stood here today to argue that instead of the punitive to use Section 216, subsection 2, there must be a radical shift in how intergovernmentally fiscal and relation management is resolving the problem. As the EFF, we have also consisted and stated that this country must abolish the issue of the tender system. We can see they are not working, they are not helpful to the people, they are not helping to the municipality. The people are looting, they are not putting the interest of our people at heart. Instead of hiring private firms to build houses and roads, the EFF proposed a creation of state-owned company that will employ its own engineer, architect, and artisan, so that people can work on their municipality. This entity can be responsible for all the public infrastructure, ensuring that the profits are not extracted but reinvented into a further development. Lastly, Chair, the state must insource all the workers. We must insource all the security guards and the cleaners and those who are working in the public institution, so that they are permanent on the state employees with full benefit. They must not be exploited like the way they were exploited by the forefathers of Padinos. People who work in the security, they must get benefit, so that at the end of the day, they ease the burden to the government. The DA, they didn't love our people. That is why Sibona, the victim of Karabo Khakao, Utulana Peter. Of Khakao, they never bother. So the insourcing will be the solution, and we are happy that the president of the country agree with the economic freedom fighter that the insourcing must be done, and it will happen. And it will happen in your Department of Home Affairs, and it will happen in the Department of Public Works, and it will happen in the environment, in all your departments, even here in the Western Cape. We are not immune. We are going to do what we are telling you. We are going to vote in this house. This house is very important. We are doing the legislation. We are not going to be used to fight your failures in NISA and other municipalities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Beg your pardon. Thank you very much, Honourable Makasine. Honourable members, that brings the debate to a close. I would like to thank all premiers, MECs, special and permanent delegates, members of Salga that were in attendance today for your participation. The House will now rise and we will see each other again in a couple of weeks' time only. The House, honourable members, is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.
Colleagues, I made to understand that